Good evening, Cryptid fans. Well, we're just going to go ahead and call it a wrap. We've heard all we need to hear now from Robby. Everything's good. I'm just kidding. Now, man, thanks for joining us. Chat's rolling along. We was a little concerned early on there. Jeff told me it says we're not live till 72 minutes from now, and I'm like, well, that ain't right. I don't know where that come from. And then the chat wasn't rolling. I'm like, oh boy, we got a problem. Then it took off. So we're good to go. We're ready to have some fun here. And first
same
time
thing
I've had.
happened.
Go ahead, Robby.
I was just gonna say same thing happened to me and DA the other night when we was doing campfire stories. We were both talking. He said, "It says we're not supposed to be live for like 58 minutes," and it was like 2 or 10 minutes. I said,
"It's working. It's working. We're here. We're live. So I assume we're live. Yes, we're live.
Yeah,
we're live.
So anyway, yeah, it's the first time I've had the opportunity to talk to Robby, and it sounds like he's got some. He kind of his experience. Of course, he's a little younger. Of course, everybody's younger than me, but he had
not a lot.
something kind of similar to me. So it was pretty cool to hear that story. But anyway, we got Cracker T, Jeffrey, whatever you want to call him, the slighted bunyip, the bearded egg, whatever you want to call him. But Jeffrey's here. No, he's not doing his hair because he cut it all off. So
no, I still got
you got a little bit. All right. Man, we get shots rolling. Got Brother River in here, Billy Schilling, Patrick. My goodness. I think I saw Miss V's in here. Good deal.
Yeah, unfortunately, David was not available tonight.
Yeah, no Blaylock tonight, doggone it. But that's okay. He'll be back next week. With the computer, he said so. But yeah, we're just gonna dive right in here. Again, you know, I've seen him with D.A. Roberts and stuff, but I haven't had a chance to talk to him. But I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, if not for anybody else that already knows you, for me, and you know, just tell us a little bit about yourself. And I already know you're a law enforcement officer, and I know you work with D.A. Roberts quite a bit, and really love you guys' show. And man, you guys get tremendous amount of the chat is amazing. How many people you have? I'm kind of jealous of it a little bit, but we had DA on before, and just tell us.
It's not been an easy and it's not been a quick road. You know, DA and I were talking about that the other night. Yeah. It's been a minute to get to where we're at, but
yeah, we're only 22 shows in starting tonight. So
so we're a little ways over 300 now. I think we're at 301, maybe 302. If you count the campfire stories, is a little bit higher, but that's a different type of show. So we just count the Wednesday and Saturday night show in the Ex Machina podcast. So, but yeah. So anyway, I'm Robby Raines. I'm one of DA's co-hosts, along with Doc and Steve, and DA, of course, the man himself, who's in the chat tonight. What's up, brother? And I've been a police officer for 28, 29 years somewhere. You lose count when you've been doing it that long. But I had an encounter back when I was 8 or 9-ish. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of it because I can get kind of long-winded on this story. But
we got all night in case you haven't noticed. We try to put Jeff to sleep, so the longer the better.
Well, the gist of it was a summer because I was I've been a cop since God was a corporal. Yay. Gee, DA, I ain't never heard that one before, buddy. But it was the summertime because I was out, we were at my great grandparents' house. It was me, my mom, my two grandparents, her mother and father, and my two great grandparents who were my grandmother's mother and father. Everybody lived, and I still live on the same piece of land that my grandparents gave me, but it's all still in that. Nobody except my mom and dad and my uncle from the family still live here. My great grandparents obviously are dead. My grandparents died, but we all still live in the same area. Obviously, I didn't live in this house that I'm living in right now then because I wasn't old enough to have a house. See what I meant about getting long-winded, some tangents, squirrels, things like that. Anyway, I digress. So it's literally 120 yards ish off to my left is where this happened. And back then it was nothing but a lot of woods. And I called it a swamp. DA and I was talking about that last night. It wasn't like a Louisiana swamp. It's just, kind of like where stagnant water stands a lot of times. off a creek and pond runoff. But a lot of people around here call that a swamp because it wasn't like it was just like a couple of, I mean, it was like, acres of land that was just mushy, stagnant water, trees growing up in it. And we just called it a swamp. But that's what a lot of that area back in my grandfather's back pasture was. And he owned 183 acres at this time. So there's a lot of land back there. It's all houses and trailers and things like that now. So none of that's still there. But back then there was nothing but woods and rivers and swamps back there. And my great grandmother used to tell me every time I go out and play, she'd go, "Don't go too far in the woods or the boogers will get you." At 8 years old, you don't really know or think what that is. No, I haven't seen the monkeys, Misty. I told you I was marked safe from the wild escape monkeys.
Yeah.
I think they've only caught one of them.
Well, as crazy as they are, they're probably at Misty's because crazy attracts crazy. Yes, I said it, Misty. But so I'm sitting there watching TV. I don't remember what was on, but they were all sitting down on the front porch because Jerry, Jeff, both of y'all are old enough to remember when we had front porch sittings. You just went out there and sat with the old red light or the yellow light bulbs. They were just sitting down on the front porch talking. I was inside watching TV. Whatever I was watching was over, so I got up, turned the channel off. And my great grandparents' house was an old farm style house. Just basically everything was laid out on a long. You had a long floor plan with rooms that kind of came off of the main area. So I was in the den area. Straight ahead of me would have been the front room. That's where everybody came for holidays and stuff like that. And then the front porch was in front of that. So my right was the kitchen, and then a back porch / mud room, whatever you want to call it at that point. And back then there wasn't bringing bulldozers, especially people that made their own or built their own farmhouses. You didn't bring a bulldozer in and level off the land. You just built the house and leveled it with cement blocks. So one side of the house could be 6 foot off the ground. The other side could be 2 feet off the ground, just depending on how the ground was. Well, the side where the back porch was about 5.5, 6 feet off the ground because they had those big block steps that you go to the hardware store and buy that came up to the bottom of the storm door. So the bottom of the storm door is about 5.5 feet off the ground. So why I did this, I don't know. To this day, I don't know. Turned the TV off. All I had to do was walk straight ahead to go out where they were at. But for some reason, I turned to look through the kitchen. When I looked through the kitchen and looked out the back door, the screen door was where they never shut the main door that went between the mudroom and the kitchen. They always kept that big door open. So the screen door was the only door that was there. And I looked and I saw something. And at first I'm like, what am I looking at? 8 years old, you're not reasoning things out. But I'm looking at it as I'm working this out in my head, which felt like it took, 15, 20 minutes, but only took like 2 or 3 seconds. And then monster just came in my head because I was just like, it just came over me what I was looking at. Had really deep set, dark, sunk eyes, that standard like Patty Gimlin feature with a big crest on its head, the big sagittal crest, cone-shaped head, or rather. Dark color, but it didn't have any fur or hair or whatever around its eyes or its nose or its lips, but you could tell it was dark, long hair, other places. But like I was telling y'all backstage, it was doing this. And I don't know if it was subconsciously or what, but while it was doing that, like if it was moving this way, I was moving like the opposite direction. Kind of like when you're looking at something, you're like, I wasn't mimicking it, but I was moving in opposite directions. And I noticed that, and I was like, because maybe I was thinking, oh, maybe that's my reflection that I'm looking at and just it's distorted or something like that. But I knew like, hey, my reflection is supposed to go the same way I go, but it's going the opposite way. And to give you some height, I've already told you about the how far the bottom of that door was off the ground. Well, this thing's chest was in the little center bar for where you slide the glass up and down, where you can open the screen part of the door. The thing's chest was at the center of that. So now, could it have been standing on those steps? Yeah, and it may very well could, but the top of its head was above the door because it was kind of stooped down like this. That's how that's the only reason I could see the top of its head, or like from here up was covered, but I could see its face. If it'd been standing straight up, I'd only been seeing from here down, but it kind of stooped down, so I could see its face, but it was doing like this, just looking in at me. How long I looked at it, I couldn't tell you. It felt like I looked at it for, like I said, 15, 20 minutes. It's probably only 10, 15 seconds. Take off running outside, screaming to my mom, call Dad, gotta get Dad here. He was working second shift at the sheriff's office. Back then there was no cell phone. She couldn't pick up the cell phone and call him and say, hey, swing by the house or swing by Pa and Granny's house. You had to call from a landline. You had to call dispatch. And dispatch had to call him on the radio. Then he had to drive somewhere where there was a phone and call dispatch to find out who I'm supposed to call. Because back then on the radio, you didn't just say it, like, you need to call dispatch. So he had to stop, drive somewhere, pick up the phone, call dispatch, get dispatch, tell him who to call. Then he had to turn around and call us to figure out what was going on. I said, if you can't get Dad, get Uncle Brian. Because my uncle was my stepdad and my uncle were the two superheroes, for lack of a better term, in my life at that time. My stepdad was a deputy, carried a gun. My uncle was 6'5", about probably 385 at the time. He played football in college, and there was nobody that could beat my dad or my uncle in my eyes. So they long story short, got my dad on the phone. He said he was coming, but he was on the other side of the county, so it'll take him a little bit to get there. So my uncle, who still lives where he's living right now, just a minute up the road. So he comes down there, and he stands on the back porch. He's like, you were just seeing stuff. It wasn't it. So look, I'm standing here. I'm like, no, Uncle Brian. I said, its head was about 2.5, 3 feet above your head. Like I said, he's 6'5", so he's not short, and he was standing on the bottom step. So like his chin was on up to the top of that center bar where I was telling you about. So his head was up to this thing's chest. So like I said, I don't know if it was standing on one step or if it was standing flat-footed, but near as I can figure, you're talking about 10.5, maybe 11 feet tall. It was big, and its shoulders covered the entire frame of that window. So pretty much everybody in the family, nobody, even my stepdad at that time, didn't believe me. He was like, he said it was pareidolia. Of course, I didn't know what pareidolia was at that time, but there was an old magazine called Police Beat that he used to get, and they had an issue on that. And what's funny about it is he and I were just looking at that like a couple weeks before that, and on the front cover, it looks like there's this big shadow creature, but it's just a big hulking creature on there, because it's talking about it was talking about officers, overreacting in the field, and just before they knew what was going on. So it looks like this big monster on the front cover, and then you open it up to the actual story, and it's trash stacked up on a trash can. But when there was light shining a certain, that's what it looked like. He said, "You remember that magazine?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, that's what this is." And I'm like, "No, Dad, it was not that. This was moving. This was not garbage stacked up. This thing was moving. It was looking at me. I could see its eye." He said, "No." He said, "You saw something. You saw a shape. You saw a shadow or something, and your mind filled in the rest of that." I'm like, "No, it was moving. It was looking at me." So fast forward to what I told you about, that website coming up from that other group out there, and that's probably 20 years after my sighting, when this started becoming popular. He's looking through that website, looking at their sightings. He sees that within 15 miles of where we live, the exact same time, maybe a month later, somebody reported a sighting. When they started taking reports, somebody reported a sighting right there, almost you know, like I said, for something like that, 15 miles is like us walking, you know, 15, 20 yards. As big as these things are and as fast as they can move and as big as the range as they have, that's nothing. Especially back then when there was not as much traffic as there is now. So he started piecing this together, and like I said, he was a police officer, 40 plus years, and he was like, you know, he said, I've been around a lot of people telling a lot of lies. He said, and generally when people tell lies, the story changes, especially over a 40-year span. He said, your story's never changed once. He said, you may have remembered another detail, but it didn't change the overall story. The story stayed the same. It was like, oh, I remember this now too, but it never changed the story from start to finish how it actually was. He said, people who are lying don't do that. He said, so I don't think you're lying. I said, so what do you think? And this is me and him as adults having this conversation, not as a kid. I said, so what are you saying, Dad? What do you think? And he said, I think you saw what you said you saw. I said, well, I know I did, but I'm glad you finally said that. Now, my mom still thinks I saw something, but not anything. You just saw a shadow. You just saw an animal. Yeah, I did see an animal. Undiscovered North American great apes, what I saw. That's a whole different story between me and my mom. But anyway, that's pretty much my story and what got me initially into it. So I started watching, you know, after I had my encounters when I saw The Legend of Boggy Creek for the first time. Then, of course, $6 Million Man with Andre the Giant playing Bigfoot in that. In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. That's, you know, back then, as me and DA talk about all the time, and I say they didn't have the Googles. You couldn't get on the Googles and find your stuff on Bigfoot at that time. You had to watch what you could watch, or you had to go to the library and actually check out books to read about it. Imagine that. So, which, you know, and yeah, you know, and so that's how I fed that obsession at that time. And pretty much, though, I had suppressed it, because you tell anybody this kind of stuff, you know, you get laughed out of wherever you're at. People call you stupid, call you crazy, don't believe you, and you just get tired of it after a while. So I repressed it. And, you know, like we were talking backstage, I watched the Finding Bigfoots and watched, you know, Mountain Monsters and all that stupid stuff, but it's all for entertainment purposes. None of that stuff. Those people are not legitimate researchers out here looking for answers. They're people looking for ratings on TV to make money. I mean,
hey, it was entertaining. Mountain Monsters was entertaining, right?
But that's all it was meant for, was to be entertaining.
Yeah.
One thing made all those repressed memories come back. And I'm gonna brag on him, because I know he's in here listening, but I would do this whether he was in here listening or not. I read The Wild Hunt, Odin's Call. And DA put a line in that book. And he put a line in that book about the thing tree peaking and doing that sway and stuff like that. I read that line, and 40 years of suppressed memories just washed back over me like a tidal wave. I started getting cold chills, and the hair on my arms and back of my neck was standing up, and I was just like, oh my God. And, you know, by the time I was done with that book, it's just like, it was almost like I had relived that entire encounter again. Just from that, I mean, the book was great up until that point, but once I got to that point, it was just like, from then on, I had PNS backlash by the time. It was like an adrenaline dump. And thanks for anytime, boss. So at the end of the book, I see DA's email. I didn't think he'd respond to me, but I sent him an email, said, hey, this was amazing. I love this book. Where can I get the rest of your books at? So he sent me an email back, I think the very next day. And like I said, one email turned into two turned into 10 turned into 20. Those turned into phone calls. And you know, I told him that I was current law enforcement. He said, I'm former law enforcement. I told him I had an encounter when I was a kid. He said, I'd love to say it or tell it on the show. I said, sure. So I sent him a nice big long email. We did a Zoom call. I was only supposed to listen to because I didn't think I was going to get home in time to hear it live. But I texted him and said, "Hey, I actually practice got canceled because I was when I was coaching soccer still." I said, "Hey, practice got canceled, so I'm gonna get to listen to it." And he comes up with the great idea. Well, why don't you just come on the show and tell it in person? I'm like, huh? I'm like, me? He's like, yeah, just come on and tell it. And I'm like, because I'd never been on camera. I'm not. I don't particularly like, or at that time, I didn't think I particularly liked that idea. I've since come to kind of enjoy it. But I got on, and I think we went like 2.5 hours. And after I told my story, I'm expecting him to say, "Oh, well, good, thanks, we enjoyed it." But he just kept on talking and involving me in the conversation, and then I talked to him about being interested after we went off air. I talked to him about being interested in doing my own type of show, and he said, "Well, man, I'll help you anytime I can." So I talked to a buddy of mine, and he said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Let's do it." So we recorded a show, sent it to DA. He was like, "Man, this is awesome." He said, "Y'all are good." So he said, "Won't you come back on and plug the show?" So I came back on the second time to talk about my show. And then I think in the third time that he had me on, one of his other co-hosts at the time couldn't be on. So he said, "Hey, can you come on and co-host for me?" I said, "Sure." And then after that, I don't remember how long it was after that he was just like, "Hey man, why don't you just want to be one of my co-hosts for permanently?" And I'm like, "Are you sure you won't? Am I not tanking your ratings?" It's like, "Nah, come on, man. You're doing great." And like I said, I'm my own worst critic. I don't think I do good at anything I do because I think I can always do better. But
he did the same thing the other night when we were talking about coming on. When you weren't supposed to be there and Doc wasn't going to make it, he's like, "Well, we'll just go on." I'm like, "You really want to do that?"
I guess he's got an eye for talent, but not that I'm talented. I'm talking about Doc and Steve. But anyway, yeah. So that was right before we hit episode 100. So I've been part of his team since right around episode 100, and here we are, a little over 300 now. So, and we have become the dynamic duo because Steve and Doc Steve works in the ER, so he can most of the time he can only be on Saturdays, and you never know with Doc's training schedule when he's going to be able to make it. So it's just pretty much become me and DA being as Steve liked to call it, we're the face of the show. And I'm like, I'm not the face of the show. It's his name. It's his. I'm just his helper. That's all it is, and I enjoy that role. But yeah, it's been a crazy ride. We were talking about that the other day. Matter of fact, he's like, it's crazy to think that one line in one book started us on this ride. And when you break it down, really think about it that way, it is crazy to think that one line in the book he wrote is what started this whole entire journey that he and I have been on. So yeah, we've done quite a few investigations and found some pretty interesting stuff together.
Yeah.
So
you guys
tell us some of your God, Jeff.
I say you guys have seen some stuff.
yeah, we've stepped off in it a time or two. That's Noah got the job of Robby Wrangler because of my my nature and my proclivity to
misty.
yeah, my proclivity to walk off into stuff half cocked and not really care what's going to happen. So yeah, but we've had some really really interesting things happen. The first time that I went down there, out there, over there, however you shake it, to wherever you're standing there looking at, depending on which way you're looking is which way I'm going. Yep, Misty, the Robby Wrangler. You got one too, so I don't want to hear it. But the first time we went down there, he took me to Joe, and to me, going down there, I wasn't expecting for us to really find some of the stuff we found. To me, it was the biggest part of it was going and seeing where these places that he'd wrote about in the books. Because I was like, this is what's going to be cool. So we go to Joe Bald, and that was like stepping into a different world. Because he was like, at a certain point when we was on the way, he was like, all right. He said, I want you to tell me when you feel like we're getting close. Because I was a fish out of water down there, never been to Missouri, had no clue where I was at. He said, you just tell me when you think we're close. So we're riding along talking, and all of a sudden it just hit me. I said, we getting close? He's like, I said, I think we're getting close. He's like, yep, we're about a quarter of a mile away. And he looked back at Noah, and they kind of laughed. I said, what? And he said, we asked Doc the same thing. And y'all are both y'all about a quarter of a mile from each other, or within a quarter of a mile of each other when you both said you thought we were getting close. I was like, so we get there, step out of the car, and it's just like stepping into a vacuum. Just dead quiet. There's just, you can hear sounds way across the lake, but right where we're at, nothing. I mean, it's just nothing. And we had passed two vehicles coming in. One of them was coming out, and the other one was in there, but both of them had the exact same 24-hour service or 24-hour service truck pasted on side. Go ahead, Jerry. Ask me what kind of 24-hour service. And I'll answer you, I don't know, because all it said was 24-hour service. So,
Jerry, you're muted.
That's why I answered him, because I saw he was muted.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry. What kind of 24-hour service was it?
I don't know.
Didn't you guys try to approach him or something the one time you were there?
That was the second time. Well, but that one didn't have 24-hour service on it. That was just one of them, like, DA, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like one of them Dodge Sprinter type van. To me, what it looked like was one of those guys that live out of those, do the conversions and live out of that, but could have very well been the same thing. It just didn't have any markings on it at that time. And there was a lot of people in the chat, because that was the night we were live or tried to go live in Joe Bald. And people were like, go ahead, Robbie, go up and say something to him. Go up and say something to him. Well, as I turned around to actually go do it, that's when he kind of moved. Yeah, playing like a Dodge Sprinter. Yep, that's what I was thinking. But anyway, so we see those vans, one leaving, one staying there. There's no houses in here. There's no, I mean, this is a closed off primitive campsite. There's nothing for a 24-hour service vehicle to be servicing in there. And this is one of those old box trucks. And there's a light on inside the cab. And I think there was a guy in there, but you could tell there was light on inside the box too. Which we were like, that's just weird. And if we go to one side of the park, he'd move his truck. He was parked down next to the boat ramps. If we go to one side over here, he'd kind of follow us over there and then go back, and he'd follow us back. Just really weird. So, our speculation is he was dropping on us. He's monitoring us. And we found, without going, because we've gone into it extensively other times, we found a large canine track and what we've pretty sure was a large Bigfoot track that night. Well, when I got there, we kind of went and ate. I went back, unpacked. DA and Noah had to go take care of some stuff. Then they came back and picked me up, and we went straight out there. We didn't have time to really get everything going, so we didn't have any casting material with us. When we found that, we were like, dang it. And it was too late to go get anything at that point. So DA was like, all right, well, I'll come pick you up bright and early in the morning. We'll go get some casting material. We'll come back and cast. Cool. So we just continue on with our little expedition. That's another night we saw, or that's the night we saw Eyeshine out of the car. And it was just pretty dang scary, because what we found the next day, I think if Noah hadn't come wrangled me, so to speak, I probably wouldn't be sitting here telling this story. Because I think whatever it was trying to coax one of us, this idiot, into coming close. Because the next day when we went out there so I guess tell you this part of the story, we get back out there 8 o'clock that morning somewhere, maybe 8:30, bright and early. Got our casting material. We go back, and there was only one spot where we could have even found a track, because the way the lake was down that time, there was most of the shoreline is nothing but those big river rocks, or lake rocks, whatever you want to call them, those big round ones like that, all over the place. Well, there was one little patch of what we in the tracking world called a track trap, just mud, perfect to catch a track. Happened to find the tracks right there in that. We come back the next day going to cast that, and there is one set of tire tracks that go through right over the top of that track. The wheels cut back and it backs out, so it makes like an A-frame.
Uh-huh.
So that's all it did was go through that track and come back out. It didn't keep on going because there was two sets of tracks. If it would have just been somebody randomly driving through it, they would have kept on driving and you only seen one set of tracks. But as soon as that front wheel got purchased on those rocks, it turns and cuts back out, and you see where the tire comes right back in the perfect A-frame next to the track that came out of it. So it specifically drove through there just to destroy that track. So anyway, that happens. We're like, well, we can't cast this track. So DA's like, well, let's walk around and see what we can find from last night. I said, all right. Well, he hadn't had his surgery at that time. So he gets to the point where he's like, I'm going to sit down for a little bit. So he goes and sits down on the rock. Me and Noah keep on walking. And I'm kind of trying to show Noah some tracking stuff. We work our way on around. I find a little game trail. And I'm like, this, I see raccoon tracks. I see deer tracks. I'm like, okay, this is a used game trail. You can tell that there's things using it.
Uh-huh.
Found a couple places that look like something big probably stepped over a log, and there was a tree that grew up beside it. You can tell about 6.5, 7 feet up, where something looked like something had grabbed and kind of rubbed some bark on it, like it was stepping over the log. Well, as I'm looking at that, Noah kind of looks up and he says, look at that over there. And you look across the game trail, and the best way to describe this is like a bird's nest, like you see the perfect bird's nest on TV, that, it all woven around and looks perfect. It's like somebody took one of them and turned it up on its side. All these branches and stuff are woven together around, and so it's like a bird's nest on its side. And we walk over and start looking at that, and I'm looking around at it. I said, no, this is a freaking hunting blind. I mean, primitive, and I said, and for lack of a better term, I said, but look, it's right here on this game trail. And I said, go get your dad and come back over here. So he went over and got DA. DA comes back over. And before I said anything to him, he walks over and he says, wow, that looks like a hunting blind. So I'm like, well, let's do some experimentation here. Let's be scientists. Let's be all nice and proper about this. I crawled inside of it, got down on my hands and knees, and I was wearing the woodland camouflage fatigues, a black hoodie, and my Dark Angel Medical camouflage ball cap. So I was a little camouflaged, but I wasn't trying to be like super camouflaged. The only thing camouflaged I had on was my ball cap and my pants. So I'm down there. I told DA, I said, you and Noah walk back up the trail, turn around, walk back down, tell me when you can see me. They knew where I was at, what I was wearing. I mean, they knew it. DA walks about 20 feet up, turns around and says, dude, I can't see you. And I started moving just a little bit. I said, can you see me now? And he's like, nope. I said, well, start walking this way and you tell me when you can see me. He was within probably like 5 feet before he could actually see me. And this was right on the trail. So I'm like, okay, well, it does the job that I was thinking it was going to do. And, I'm sitting there. I could stretch my arms out like this on both sides. There was about 2.5, 3 feet on each side of my arm and about the same amount on top. So whatever was using this was a whole lot bigger than me and had room to get in there. So while the three of us were talking, and I'm still down, kind of looking around, trying to see if I could see any fur or anything like that. And I look down, I start brushing some leaves away. And DA said, don't tell me. And I backed up and I said, what do y'all see? And DA looked down. He said, holy shit. He said, that's a wolf print. But it was a wolf print. This is the knife. We laid that knife down beside it, and there was about 1.5 inches on either side of it. This
I
is
have that same knife.
Yeah, the Jolly Roger. That's a big knife. And so the print was like, above and below the knife. Right in, I had my hands down on the ground like this, probably shoulder width apart. And that print was like, it was right in between where my fists were. And that was right where we saw the eye shine the night before. Or right next to where we saw the eye shine. So that's where whatever we were looking at worked its way over into that.
Yep.
It was waiting on one of us to come down there.
Thankfully, nobody went down there.
Well, I was on my way.
Yeah.
But
wow.
Shortly thereafter, after Noah became the Robby Wrangler, we heard some stuff that made all three of us clear leather at the same time. We heard a lot of skittering and the stuff that didn't belong, let's say. So after we decided to leave there, he's like, well, you want to go to Blunt Road? I'm like, of course. That's where he based the Beast of Blunt Road from. I'm like, yeah, let's go. We get down there.
You guys found the headless deer? Or
no, we found
the head.
The deerless head.
Yeah, deerless head. Yeah.
Right.
Now there was a headless deer further down, but what we found first was the headless or the deerless head. There was a head, but there was no deer. Because we're driving down the road, and DA's like, "What is that?" I said, and I was fiddling with something. And I said, "What?" And he said, "Right there in the road." And I looked forward, and I'm like, "It's a deer head." He said, "No." I said, "Yeah." And we pulled up close. He said, "Oh," he said, "That is a deer head." So we pull him down the park. Now, this is the funny part about this is when Dark Waters was on our show, and he said, "So what'd y'all do after that?" I said, "Well, we went back up there and looked at it." He said, "Wrong answer." He said, "You mean y'all didn't turn the vehicle around and go off the other way?" We're like, "No." He said, "I ain't going out with y'all." Love Dark Waters. He's hilarious. Yeah. But anyway, so we got down and park and walked back up there to look at it. Tongue's gone. The eyes are gone. There's no maggots, no smell. I mean, a little bit of a smell, but not what you would expect from freaking deer head laying there in the middle of the road. You've seen the pictures, Jeff. This was not cut. It was jagged, like it'd been torn off.
Yeah.
We're looking at that for a little bit. We go back down to where we're parked, and I'm like, And I just saw this one little area. There was used to be a little drive-up cable gate crossing. I said, I'm gonna walk up there and look. So I walked up there and looked. And that's where we found the rest of those carcasses. There was I think maybe the carcasses of 3 deer in various. There was one that just was a spine, but there was no organs. There was no meat. There was no. I mean, it was weird. It was not the work of what you would think poachers would do.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, it was a kill site. It's like this is where we're having our dinner. Is what it looked like to me.
Didn't look like something that somebody just dumped them off the side of them.
No. Well, I mean, because there was still plenty of stuff that if somebody was shooting those deer for meat, or I mean, because who takes meat off of bones, poaching wise, and leaves? I mean, you leave, especially ribs. You're gonna leave the meat on the bone.
Yeah.
And there was like the entire rib cage. It's weird.
Most poachers are either shooting for back straps or horns.
Yeah.
At least what I've dealt with around here.
Now, one of those heads was missing. So I say it was missing horns. I don't know because there was just a big hole where the rat would be and the brains were gone. But it wasn't like somebody did it for a European mount or for just because it wasn't cut clean off. It was like it was because there again the hole in the head was jagged.
And you don't see that when somebody's sawing the horns off
No.
the deer either.
Yeah, because usually if they're doing that, you'll still see the nubs on the top of the head where they've sawn through that. It was like one hole, one jagged hole like that, like something had grabbed a hold of the back of the head and the antlers, and just like popping the top off a beer can.
Wow.
You got to think about the amount of force that would require too.
Probably about the amount of force it would take to rip the head off the body.
Uh-huh.
And and then the second time I was out there, and we went to Combs Ferries when we found the infamous hide in the tree.
The deer leg?
Well, the leg and the hide.
The leg that was still bleeding.
Yeah. Same one that somebody in the chat the other night was trying to argue with me about. Says, "Oh, a cougar did that." Until they actually looked at the picture. If you just look at the picture with the hide on it, it's kind of hard to tell how big or small that tree is.
Yeah.
But DA actually put the picture with Steve standing in front of the tree, and then you get the perspective of, oh, wait a minute, this tree is small, because literally that tree was only about that big around.
Yeah, that
not going to
wasn't
go
for
up
a
that.
cat.
Yeah, no, a cat's not going to go up that.
No.
Can't.
And it was 6.5 to 7 feet off the ground. And the two limbs that it was on were on opposing sides of the tree.
And then you've got the Missouri tree trout.
Yep. Don, I just read what Don said. Yeah, the Missouri tree trout, which was other side of the path, just a little ways up, maybe 13 yards in a diagonal line from each other.
Because we know animals just put fish heads in a tree branch.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, poor Steve is the one that was. Someone said poor animal. Steve grinding some gears in his brain that night. He had a paradigm shift that he almost dropped his transmission.
and his broken foot. Well, we won't forget about
it. Was his he broke his tibia. Yeah. When he jumped off the boat when we came in, nobody knew that he was. He thought he just kind of tweaked it, and it just kept on hurting and kept on hurting. And he was out there the whole time with a broken tibia, or not broken but fractured, which still. But when he saw that hide in the tree, he was. I'm the one that got all the heat on that one because I'm the one that found it, and so. I'm like, all right, buddy, just let me have it.
Wow.
So, but yeah.
A lot of expletives there.
Oh, yeah. A lot of F you, Robby, and
yeah.
But it was all in love. It was all in love. So, yeah, DA and I have yet to go out and not get in the middle of something. I mean, it may have been something small that we found, but we've always found something. And it's been a pretty productive.
Heads in the middle of the road. I don't know if I'm. That's not something I want to run across.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I always say, or DA and I both always say, people who do the job that we've done. Him in law enforcement and corrections, me in law enforcement and firefighting and bouncing. People like us are wired different.
Uh-huh.
And I guess that translates over to our Bigfoot and Dogman hunting. Because when most people are like, what in the world are y'all thinking? Why are y'all doing it? We're just like, I want to find out. I want to see. I mean,
well, it's like if I hear something out here messing around, if the cows are doing something, I'm going to go look. Hopefully there's nothing out there to...
Keep your head on a swivel, I can tell you that.
Maybe I should have brought the 270.
Well, and that's, and we always say that we don't go out looking to be the guys who bring one in. We go out armed so we come home. And we don't usually go light. Now, we were light in Combs Ferry because there were 7 of us, and every one of us had handguns. So we figured we had enough lead, even if it was small lead. We figured we had enough to pull us out of a situation. But we thought that at first before we knew we were going to have to go in and come out 3 at a time. After you talking about from Combs Ferry, DA? I'm going to assume that's what you're talking about. And that, yeah,
Yeah.
that's, we found those two, and in our opinion, those were warning markers. They're territorial, warning, whatever you want to call them. And, you know, we've had people argue, well, no, that's just snacks they left in a tree. That's this, that's that. There was not enough left of that deer to be a snack for anything other than unless it was going to chew on a little bit of that leg bone that was left. I mean, because it was just, there was hide and sinew. And, so I think it was, hey, don't cross this line. Well, of course, we crossed that line. And we had heard stuff. We'd heard, you know, like movement. We had maybe heard a few little things thrown, but nothing like significant. We didn't hear any chatter or anything like that. But we knew that we were being looked at and watched. But after we crossed those two or passed those two markers, we really started hearing things being thrown. We started seeing eye shine a whole lot. I don't think we saw any eye shine before that night. Correct me if I'm wrong, DA. I don't remember. I didn't see any until after we passed those markers. And Noah he was on the parabolic mic. He heard what he described as chittering. He said it sounded like garbled radio transmission. Like if somebody's talking on a radio and you're hearing it, but it's not coming through. It's just real garbled. And it sounds like almost like a different line. I've heard them call it like samurai chatter or whatever like that, because it sounds like a different language, which obviously it is. He said he was hearing that over the parabolic mic. So he wasn't sure at first if he was just picking up on the frequency, was picking up something like, you know, somebody talking on the radio that was out on the lake fishing or what. But after listening to it a little bit more, he was like, no, this ain't coming from no radio. This is me hearing something out in the wood that's making these sounds. Because he would hear it here, and then he would hear it over here. He was hearing it in different directions. So it wasn't like, if he was picking up radio frequency, he wouldn't have been able to tell things were moving around and coming from different directions. Yeah. So
would there have been anybody around with the radio?
No, we had to go in there by boat, and nobody was even supposed to be in there. You can kind of go in there during the day for certain times to fish, but this is a peninsula in the middle of Lake Table Rock, and the only
interesting place.
Yeah, and the only way that you could have drove in there before has been bulldozed off. You couldn't even. Right now, you could not even take an ATV in there because there's big boulders and trees and all this stuff pushed over the trail. And if there was anybody else in there, we would have seen them or heard them.
I.e., like a state park or something that's been purposely closed.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and DA can tell you the time frame that it's been closed, but it's been closed a pretty good while. Yeah. And matter of fact, I think Combs Ferry Park's been closed longer than Joe Bald, or maybe the other way around. But I think it said that no, Misty, you know I don't do the ghost thing.
No,
I'm looking for real stuff. I'm not saying ghosts aren't real. I'm out looking for the flesh and blood stuff.
Yeah.
DA said Joe Ball's been closed about 25 years.
25 years. Wow.
Yeah, and Combs Ferry's been closed about 30. So yeah, it's been closed longer than Joe Bald. But it's like DA said, you know, that the Army Corps of Engineers owns that whole area. And nobody knows why they closed it out. That real estate around that lake is prime territory for building and things like that. And they won't sell it for any reason. They won't let people go in there and open it. And they won't let anything be done in there. As a matter of fact, the first time that me and DA and Noah went down there together, they were building the dock before. And we get down there and DA was like, yeah, we went down here and they're building the dock. We go down there, it's gone. But we found bits and pieces of it. I found a 2.5-inch piece of PVC that had been twist snapped in half.
Ooh.
Now, if anybody has ever worked with PVC,
yeah,
that's you might can break it this way a little bit, but to spiral twist it and snap it,
no.
Because when you put it back together, you had to rotate it to get it to fit. You could put it the way it looks, but it would still have gaps in it. But then you rotate it, and those gaps would touch. So it was twisted in opposite directions to break.
It takes some incredible strength to do that.
I don't know what. I mean, short of a piece of equipment, I don't know what can do that.
How big of a piece of PVC was it, Robbie?
2.5, 2 inch, 2.5
Oh,
inch. Something. I mean, it was about
Really?
that big. Around.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You damn near
Wow.
need a piece of machinery to break that thing. I mean, you can run over that with a pickup and not break it.
Yeah. River, I have not seen anything like that. I've been told, and I didn't see it, but I've been told a certain picture that we took in some of the places up there. My buddy Johnny and I go in. Somebody said there were some little people in that. I'm not saying they're not. I just saying I don't see it. But somebody's pointing out, so, oh yeah, there's little people in that picture. So
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it, but
we got little people in this county, don't we, Jeffrey?
But I take that back.
I'm the doc of the group.
I take that back. I have seen a little person. Every time I see Doc.
I'm the doc. I'm the midget in the bunch.
DA, I almost forgot when he asked if we saw little people. I almost forgot about Doc, because he's so short. Sometimes you overlook him.
Right, exactly.
Why is called pocket doc?
He's not that short, but it's just me and DA love to give him a hard time because he's shorter than we are. I always joke, say we look like the cell tower signal when we're standing because DA's about 5'10", I'm about 5'9", and Doc's about 5'4". He's about 5'6". So,
oh man, Jeff, we're going to send you down to Pigeon Forge.
Midget wrestling.
Anyway, go ahead, Robbie. I'm sorry. I had to throw that in there on Jeffrey real quick. Yeah, that place is crazy, incredible. I remember watching the show, and of course hearing a talk about that. And I remember him talking about a couple of the areas there being closed down. Jeff, we have a peninsula nearby us in the next county over across the river.
And it's got plenty of activity.
Plenty of activity and gates. Sometimes those gates are closed.
And sometimes on the weekend, even though they're not supposed to be open, they're open. So
yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird.
And no one's ever stopped me from driving in there yet. So
yeah.
Well, and that's same thing with us. We've gone to these places that you're not supposed to go in, but nobody's ever challenged us. The last time I was there, we were going to go up to Smiddle Cave, and
now that's a place that really interests me.
Yeah, and we went up there, and as soon as we turned on the road, we were in my truck, and as soon as we turned on the road, DA looked over. He says, "Wow." I said, "What?" He said, "Their version of DNR, which is what we've got, Department of Natural Resources, whatever. I can't remember what Missouri calls them.
Up here, it's NRP.
Yeah. Anyway, wildlife conservation, whatever it was a game warden sitting up there. He said, "I've never seen a game warden up here like this." I said, "Well, maybe he's just sitting there writing a report," because it was just as soon as not far off the road. And he said, "Oh, maybe." So we drive on down. There's somebody camping at and he's like, "Nobody ever camps up here." Sure enough, there's somebody camping. So we keep on going. Get up to another campsite. There's some other people camping. He said, "We're almost to the gate." So we get to the gate, and the gate's shut. Well, look over it. There's another wildlife officer over there. And he was like, "This is weird." He said, "I have never seen this many people here." So, but he has since found, he found it after I left, there's actually other caves in that area that are not sealed off like that one is. So next time I go up there, we might be doing some caving, which I'm not scared of much, but I don't like going in caves.
Yeah, there's some spots up here on the ridge that I've been in a few times, and I don't really want to go back in there again.
The caves and Moon Valley are the two places and Moon Valley's for a whole different reason. I know there's cryptid activity up there, but there's also cannibalistic activity up there, and that's
no.
And you can look up Cannibals of Dallas County, Missouri, and see that that's an actual thing. No, KC, Robbie is not a spelunker. DA is, but Robbie's not. I'm not about cave diving or cave spelunking or whatever. I guess cave diving if you're doing it underwater, and I really ain't about doing it that way. But we are gonna go try to. I guess he'll get me in there.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I would go as long as there's enough people, but in a cave. But
Yeah, well, Casey said that's how Batman started out. But Casey, I'm not a DC guy. I'm a Marvel guy. I'm Captain America guy, and Captain America didn't. Tony Stark was in a cave with a box of scraps, but Captain America, I guess he was frozen in ice, but that's about as close to a cave as he came. I know. I'm just putting off the inevitable. I know I'll go up there and I'm going to go in. So
it's like you don't have a choice.
But I don't like it. Dang it! No, I would rather do the cave thing than I had spend the night at Moon Valley, because that was just creepy on a whole different level. Because
yeah.
I just Wrong Turn vibes. That movie Wrong Turn. That is the whole time we were up there. I couldn't really concentrate on listening for cryptids because I'm looking for that big yellow truck to come driving around the corner with the inbred hillbillies in the back of it. I'm like,
oh yeah, I bet they do have a lot of snakes. That's one thing I don't tolerate too well.
I would rather deal with the snakes than I had the cannibals. Yeah,
I guess, yeah.
You know, I love horror movies, but people can't understand why I don't watch any of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres or don't like them. I'm like, because that stuff was real. That was based on real life. That can really happen. I said, chances of Freddy or Jason or even Michael Myers happening are like slim to none, and Slim just left town. Freaking Texas Chainsaw Massacre pretty much happened.
Yeah.
You know, that stuff, I don't, that's why, like Saw, I don't like that because that's stuff that can really happen.
Where'd it go? My gosh, this chat kicks off on me.
I know.
There it is. I found that kind of funny.
Yeah, you told me that when we was down there too. You said, if you hear banjo music, let me know. I said, oh yeah, you'll know I hear banjo music because you'll see my butt getting in the car.
So have you done any searching around your state and around your area, Carolina?
Yeah, Johnny and I've got a place we go to up in Jones Gap, which is, imagine, and I know it's going to be hard to believe, Jeff. I know you've watched our show a lot, Jerry. I don't know if you watched it as much as it. I know it's going to be hard to believe, but we've had sightings in a national park up there around our house or around our area. I know that's shocking.
Well, after that audio you played for us the other night, I was like, "What?"
Well, that's in a state park area where a lot of that stuff, or around a state park. So same thing. Is Jerry? I don't have it, so I can't.
I don't know if I
send it. I haven't heard it. No, I haven't heard it yet.
I'll send it to you again.
Yeah, send it to me. I like to hear that.
Send it to him. Let him hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Most people. Well, the reaction Leon gave the other night was the best.
It's always good to hear a British reaction.
Yeah. So DA and Sonia want me to tell everybody about that, so I'm gonna tell everybody about it.
Yep.
And Rodney, my old chief, he's in the chat too. He tagged me in it first, and then everybody started tagging me in it, but Rodney tagged me in it first. Supposedly, and I want to say this is probably about 20-30 miles from where I'm at right now, not far from where my real dad lives. August, I want to say 2nd or 4th, one of those days, at about 2 a.m, guy's ring camera goes off, and what set it off, I don't know, but it set it off at the perfect time, because you hear the crickets that are up close to the microphone, and all of a sudden you just hear this growl / guttural roar. Often and people hear it, they say that sounds a lot like the howl from American Werewolf in London. But whatever it is, you can tell it's a long ways away from that microphone. and it's big, it's loud, it's long. Yeah, River, I do. I think that, and I think they're told they don't need to talk about it too, because I know the rail company we got around here in Norfolk Southern, they tell their drivers not to talk to anybody, because we had a train that
I've heard about that around here.
we had a train that was involved in a guy tried to was pulling a single wide trailer across a railroad tracks when I was working at another jurisdiction different from one I'm working in now. The guy pulled across and train hit the single wide, and obviously it didn't do much to the train, but it did a lot of damage to that crossing. Completely obliterated the trailer. But my corporal's out there trying to work the wreck, and he's just all he was asking for was it wasn't the engineer's fault. The engineer couldn't have done nothing anyway. He needs their information for the wreck report. They're like, nope. He's like, what do you mean no? He said, I need you. Nope. Our law enforcement, Norfolk Southern law enforcement is on the way. He'll talk to you. He said, I don't need to talk to him. I need your information because you are operating the train. He said, you're not in any trouble, but I got to have you. He's like, not saying another word to you. And he's talking to a police officer like this. And I'm like, did he just listen to it?
Yeah, he's listening to it right now.
But he was like, no. He said, I'm not telling you anything. And
you sent me the picture, Jeff. You sent me the wrong thing.
Your picture.
Yeah, you sent me the picture that you had circled from the local.
Hold on. That's not what I was trying to send you.
I know.
But getting back to the house, so Rodney tags me in it, and then everybody else starts tagging me in it. Well, I start talking, or we figured out who the guy was. So I sent him a message on Facebook, started talking to him, and he said it was his dad's house, and that what they still don't know what set the Ring camera off. They just know when they went back and watched the footage, they heard that, and they were just like, "Oh wow!" So me and Rodney were looking at all the comments coming in from the text messages, and there were a lot of people saying, "Yep, heard that before." There's a lot of boogers in this area. There's a lot of Bigfoot. People were calling it different names, but there were a few people that were saying they thought that was something different than a Bigfoot. They said, we've heard Bigfoot scream in this area, and it don't sound nothing like that. Well, like I said earlier, that's only a couple miles from my real dad's house. I found a wolf track, or I say wolf track, use that track. It was the shape of a wolf track, but it was about the size of the one that we found in Joe Bald. Maybe a little bit smaller, not much. But found that right outside my dad's shop. And yeah, so I think there might be a Dogman around that area. That's just my personal opinion on it. Because that doesn't sound.
Jerry.
I'll be right back. I'm going to listen to this. Yeah. If I can get it to play good, I can play it on here. If you don't mind, I'll just let the.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to listen.
All
to
I'm going to say is, Robbie, tell him what happened when we played it the other night.
Oh yeah, if anybody's got any dogs or cats in the in the vicinity of them, you might want to watch them.
Dogs didn't even react to it; they were just like, "Oh."
But the first time we played it, we had people. Well, somebody was listening to it outside, and they said that it caused a commotion with some animals outside, other than canines.
Yeah. Let me check it out. I'll be right back.
Robbie, that is a good vocal.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of Sasquatch vocalization. That don't sound like any. Wow, he heard it.
And that was on a Ring camera. I still can't believe.
Look at the look on his face. That's about the same look Leon had.
I know. I was watching Leon's reaction when you guys played it.
And
yeah, wow.
Cryptid UFO awareness. That's my old chief Rodney. it's not far from his house. He said if he'd been outside, he thinks he probably could hurt as loud as that thing. And you just heard it, Jerry. That you can tell whatever did that has got a set of lungs on it.
That's some serious crap. I'm going to try to play it here real quick. Hopefully, it'll pick it up all right.
Here we go.
We kind of heard it.
You got a noise filter or something on, Jerry?
Yeah.
Noise filter's cutting it.
Okay, hold on a second. Let's try it now.
Here we go.
It's it's cutting it out.
It's really cutting it out.
Yeah, it's cutting it out big time. You can hardly even hear it.
That's Y'all keep talking. I'll bring the file over into here and see if it'll play here on the program. It should do that. I'll try that.
Yeah.
So, did anything else come of that with the
I talked to the guy a couple times, sent him a couple messages. We were talking. I said, he said it's his dad's house. I said, well, I told him, I said, well, I'm a police officer in the city here. I said, so I'm not some crackpot looking to come, bring a TV crew. Yeah, I'm not some crackpot looking to bring a TV crew or anything like that in here. I said, I legitimately, I said, I'm a co-host for DAX Machina podcast. I said, we've got close to 9,000 viewers. I said, I've got my own podcast. We've got about 500 viewers. I said, I'd really just like to come down and just me and a couple other people. I was, obviously Johnny, my co-host, probably my daughter and her boyfriend, Tyler, who were with us at the LBL. And, just that. I said, I don't want to, not going to come down there and tear anything up. He said, well, it's my dad's. I need to ask him. I said, that's fine. I totally get it. I said, just let me know. And he sent me a message back the next day and said, nah, Dad don't want anybody down on the property. I said, well, I get that. I understand that. I said, who else is, your neighbors? I said, there may be somebody that I know that lives around there, because he never would tell me exactly where he lived. So when I asked him that, he stopped giving me any kind of, I don't know if he was just like, I don't want anybody coming, because it's like you said, it was his dad's. So
yeah. There's a lot of places around here I'm trying to get people. It's just, I know there's some stuff in some certain spots that I just can't get anybody to talk about.
Yeah. I'm 100% positive that I would have known somebody, because, I've lived in this area my entire life. I'm sure that I would have known somebody, or my dad who lives that, or even Rodney who lives not far from there. One of us would have known somebody in that area that would have let us come on their land. Because obviously, if it is something, it's not going to be stuck on this guy's property. It's something that big is going to move around and have a lot of area. But it's just having a good starting point. So me and Johnny actually did go up to my dad's and spent about 2.5 hours up there one night. Now, we didn't hear anything. We saw some interesting activity in the sky that night.
We get that around here too, right over top of the park.
Yeah. Well, this was, and I'm not a big, I believe they exist, but that's just not my cup of tea. So I've never really looked for it, and I was watching on my psionics, looking around in the woods and, just looking to see if I could see anything. And Johnny was like, holy crap. And I said, what? He said, look up. Well, that psionics just kills your night vision, because it just like, it floods your eyes with so much light. Then when you take it away, it's just like you can't see anything. So the whole time or not the whole time, but the first 5-10 minutes, and I'm looking up, I'm just blinking my eyes like this, trying to see. Well, by the time I finally get to where I can see, I see this thing, and it's way up higher than most normal planes would be, but it's not moving in a straight linear path like this. It's going.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, planes ain't supposed to do that. He goes, hell no, they ain't.
I got that file loaded. We'll see how it plays.
I've watched stuff here that'll stop over the park and it'll sit there like it just stopped. And I'm thinking, well, that's not a helicopter. There's no, I mean, there's no searchlights. There's no like blanket. There's nothing to indicate that it's anything that's regulated.
We've had stuff here, especially you can't see the nuclear power plant from here, but you can look over in that direction and there's always crap doing, flying around, whatever, if you pay attention to it. I'll play this file real quick, see if it comes through.
You're right, Hillary. Damn drunk aliens.
Here we go.
What do y'all think of that?
That's pretty creepy. Wow.
That one.
Well, that's even louder and creepier on this. Trust me.
Art, that's a good guess. Godzilla.
Man,
whatever it is, it's big.
Yeah.
Maybe not Godzilla big, but
never know. You never know about what's in this world anymore.
That's true.
Wow, that's wild.
So, hey, Jeff, Hillary said puppy just shot out from under the bed. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Rodney's sending a link to the original. Are you sending it on?
Oh, he should be able to do it here, I think. And no, it had to be one of us to do it.
Well, I'll just make sure he wasn't sending it to me. Oh. But so yeah, that's kind of, and we just kind of started piecing this together here recently. DA and I have. A couple months ago, a woman went missing in the what we call the horse pasture, which is attached to a state park. It's where the only bear hunting in Pickens County is done is for 2 weeks out of the deer season. They have bear season. It stops deer season for 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks for bear season. It's up in that area. We had a woman go missing. They found she had two of her or both her dogs with her. They found one dog, some treats, and maybe a leash or whatever. Never found her. Never found the other dog. And the dog they found was like right in that area. Wouldn't move. Wouldn't go anywhere else, which was weird.
It didn't kill it.
No, but the other one's gone. And why? So why wouldn't they brought cadaver dogs in? They brought tracking dogs in. From what I understand, the tracking dogs wouldn't do much tracking. The cadaver dogs never picked up on anything, or wouldn't pick up on anything. It's a mystery, and this is not. She wasn't a novice to anything. I mean, she'd gone up there a lot. Apparently, this time she just went up there at the wrong time. So, DA and I have kind of started speculating that here's this howl that people start hearing in August. I found big wolf tracks in my dad's house not far from that. There may be something to it. That may be that may check the boxes for a missing 411. And River, to answer your question, I think the reason they can't. Well, number one, even if they don't collect their dead,
yeah,
like a lot of primates do, there's so many things in the woods that eat porcupines will eat bones, wild hogs will eat bones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much stuff that will do that.
You look at how fast antlers after shed
Yep.
season.
You know, I've been a hunter all my life. I've been in the woods all my life. I've never, in almost 50 years of life, I've never run across a bear skeleton or a bear skull or anything like that in the woods.
I mean, you rarely
I've
find
only,
a deer skeleton too.
I've rarely found shed because
Yeah.
they just disappear so quick.
I mean,
And
there's so many squirrels around here. It's like they cart the damn things off as soon as they drop them.
and the thing with thing with teeth, you got stuff like ravens and crows that have to swallow rocks and stones to be able to digest stuff. You know, if they're out there and they see something like that, they would probably pick that up and swallow that just like a stone. I mean, that's an opinion. I don't I don't have anything to back. I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility. But I think the biggest reason is I think they drag I think they live in caves. You know, DA and I have expounded on that theory many times. And I think they pull it, not to coin a phrase, I think they police up their dead.
Yeah.
It's just that's just my opinion on it. But
Now,
you
in
know,
your area, do you ever find stuff in trees?
that deer was the first time in Missouri. This is the first time I've ever seen anything in a
Really?
tree like that. Yeah. And that to me, that's probably one of the coolest, scariest, and most interesting things that I've ever found in the woods. So, you know, and I found tracks. So I don't know what's in my throat, but I found tracks. I found arrowheads. I found, you know, scrapes and rubs and all kinds of stuff. But that to me takes the cake because it's just, that's not something you would expect to find.
No.
I got a track. I forgot to tell you about that. DA knows about it, but I'll send it to you so you can look at it. But it's actually in the outro of the show. I found one time. It was on a ridge in the western part of the state, which is like up against West Virginia and PA. And that was where, you remember the story I said about the snoring
Mm-hmm.
in the hammock?
Yeah.
Same place on the ridge right above the camp. Next day, I found that. Along with the X structures and all the other stuff.
And here's the thing that, you know, we kind of started talking about this the other day. You know how you get a vehicle and it's a brand new vehicle to you. And all of a sudden, every vehicle you see is that vehicle. You know, you might not, you've seen those other vehicles, but you really have not paid attention to them. They've been there. You just hadn't paid attention to them. You get that vehicle and all of a sudden it's there. So attach that same mindset to somebody who really doesn't believe these creatures are here. And I think this really ties into all the misidentifications where people say bear. If you're one of those people who don't believe, and that's all you've been told is, oh, well, it's a misidentification, it's a bear. And you see something, especially if they walk on all fours, like we're kind of theorizing now, a lot of the times anyway, and you do see a big dark shape on all fours way off the road, your mind's automatically going to say bear.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what you've been conditioned by the mainstream media and all these people. Oh, that doesn't exist. It's a bear, blah, blah, blah. You know, so if you're not one of these people who are open to the fact that these things it's a possibility that these things exist, and you see something like that, 9 times out of 10, that's what you're going to think. And you're just going to say, I just saw a bear. Even though your mind's going to fill in those gaps and make it appear to be a bear. Because you're not open to that. But the people who have an open mind, those are the ones who see that. And that's why I use the thing with the car, because you're not used to looking for that car until you have that car. And then everything you see is that car because that's fresh in your mind. So when you see these footprints or you see this stuff and you have that paradigm shift, once that switch is flipped, you can't unflip it. So once you see this, it's just like, when I went through my tracking class, I'd seen all these signs and all these things that they were showing us on how to track somebody, but never really thought about it until they showed me. And then I was like, wow, why did I not see this before? There it is. I think it's the same thing. People have seen these things, but their mind won't allow them to believe that that's what they've seen. And then either something happens really profound, and there's just no way that their brain can spin it. And then once they have that paradigm shift, then it's a lot easier to see and have these encounters, I think.
Right. Yeah, I get the joy every now and then of talking to an old hunter. It's like, I've been hunting 30, 40, 50 years out in these woods. I said, was you looking for it? They ain't got an answer for that. They don't have an answer for that.
Exactly. That's,
sure, you didn't see it.
If you're not looking for something, you're not specifically. And the thing is, too, that, DA and I've talked about this multiple times. How many, Jeff, how many deer have you ever shot that you didn't see them move first?
I had to wait for them to move.
Exactly, because you didn't see them until they moved, right? And that's a deer.
Right.
But now, how many times have you been out there and them dang little squirrels sound like an elephant walking through the woods? But a 12-point buck will sneak up on you, and you're like, oh, God, where'd that thing come from? It's the same thing. Deer, no. Turkey. How many turkey do you see before turkey season? Every one of them. How many of them do you see when turkey season starts? Maybe one.
You know something funny? This year, we didn't see a single gobbler during spring turkey. Ever since November rolled around, turkeys everywhere back here.
It's because they're smart. They know. So I say this all the time. If we know that deer are smart enough and turkey are smart enough to figure out what time of the seasons and what time of the year that they need to be scarce, why is it so hard to believe that something that has got the intelligence of a chimpanzee or a gorilla or something like that, why is it so hard to believe that those things can go unseen if they want to?
Correct.
I can't understand the mindset of some of these people. And I've had people that, I believe in ghosts and I believe in aliens, but I don't believe in Bigfoot. How can you sit there with a straight face and logically look somebody in the eye and say, I believe in little green men from Mars and spirits from the other world, but I don't believe in an undiscovered species of great ape? That floors me, that kind of mentality. Because, the mountain gorilla is not discovered until the 1930s. Hell, the Billy ape was only discovered in 1998 by National Geographic.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of ignorance is the reason that we are where we are right now.
And I've got a good example of this. I think I probably told you guys this on the show. I can't remember because I can't stand to watch myself on interviews. But my ex-wife and I are driving down the road, a cornfield, only like 2 miles from here. And I look over and I see a black bear walking across the cornfield. We see them, but we don't see them that much. I mean, now in the last year or two, they're very prevalent compared to what they have been. But I'm looking at it and I'm watching. You know how a bear walks, the way they move. I'm looking at this thing going, well, holy shit, there's a black bear. And my ex-wife, about the time I say bear, she goes, what's that black lab doing going across the field? And I'm like, first of all, you watch how it's moving. Second of all, the damn thing doesn't even have a tail, and the butt's this far up compared to the front end of it as it's moving. And there's a guy over here on the peninsula that researches that saw 2 Bigfoot cross the trail in front of him do the same damn thing. So how many people are seeing these things and saying bear?
Yeah, and
Right.
absolutely, River. That's the thing. You get these skeptics out here and say, okay, well, come on. 9 times out of 10, they're gonna be like, nah, I don't want you.
Right.
And Jerry, you said hey, they're not looking for this.
Right.
They love to sit behind a keyboard or wherever else and say, well, I go hunting all the time. I ain't never seen anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, you're hunting for deer.
There's
You're hunting
people
for
that I've hunted with that still don't believe it.
if you want deer hunting stories about Bigfoot, Greg House.
Oh yeah,
Mhm. Oh yeah.
I told
Greg
you
that
got
place
before. He's
crazy
the
over
reason
there.
that I even ever went public about my
yeah.
after
Greg
me.
has got some stories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And but he says the same thing. You know, people are just not you know how people are. There's the average person who is, and I don't mean this as an insult, but the average person that's a sheep that just wants to do what they want to wake up, they want to go to work, they want to do what they're supposed to do, they want to stay in that little comfort zone the entire time, keep that head down, do whatever. And they don't want to think about what's around them or what's out there. No situational awareness. No, oh no. I don't this way. I don't care about this. This. And there's nothing wrong with that. To a point.
yeah.
When it's the point where it's going to end up getting them hurt because they're not being aware, that's when it becomes an issue. But you can't be so closed off and so narrow minded to think that we know or have discovered everything that's out there to discover. I mean, just like these scientists who say, "Oh, it's an impossibility that the megalodon still exists." How can you say that when only 7% of the world's oceans have been explored?
Right.
I mean, there's places out there that you could hide the Empire State Building on top of the Chicago or the Sears Tower on top of the old World Trade Centers and still have plenty of water left. I mean, you can't say definitively. That's just like you can't say that we're the only ones in this universe because we ain't explored it. I mean, DA and I both have gotten really good analogies about that. DA's is the one that says, "Well, I took this teaspoon out there and I dipped a teaspoon of water at the edge of the ocean. I don't see no sharks, so there must not be any sharks in that ocean." And mine is that's like going to or for space is like, oh, there's nothing else out there. That's like going to the mailbox and opening the mail and said, well, yep, that's it. I've seen the country.
That's like you strap the deer cam to the tree. The trail cam doesn't pick up anything. Meanwhile, the deer's over here on this side of the field.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for us to have that narrow-minded, and us as in civilization, to say we know everything and we got everything figured out. My own brother does not believe me, but he'll every once in a while he'll send me some like this last hoax video that they proved was a hoax with the Harry and the Henderson mask that the guy painted up and made it look pretty good, but you could tell it was a fake. He said, "So what do you think of this?" I said, "It's fake. They've already proved it was a fake." But then you have these people who are like, "Oh, well, look at the Patty Gimlin. They've proved that over and over again that that's fake." I'm like, "No, they haven't." I said,
try to blow up Patty.
They still try to debunk that. Man,
when you have the best Hollywood costume designer from the time that says, "I can't even do this."
Correct.
Well, and that's well, there's a lot of it like to say that they're that there was an interview, the guy that sold them the costume. I'm like, no, look,
the guy that claimed he wore the suit wasn't even tall enough.
Exactly. The guy who made the suits for Planet of the Apes was interviewed, and he said, I quote, if we could have made a suit that looked that good back then, that's what you would have seen in the movie instead of what we had.
Uh-huh.
Right. There's a good one from Hillary. That bear just grabbed a chicken with each hand and walked off, right?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, if you're not open minded to it, you'll never see it. So
Exactly.
unless it screws
Robbie,
up.
I don't know if you caught the show the other day on Woodwalkers when Ashby was talking about the guy shooting at the groundhog behind his
Yeah.
head.
I must have missed that one. But
we've got a new term now. It says instead of a bear, it's just a groundhog.
yeah, groundhog.
Because the guy said he was shooting at something, but he wouldn't say what it was. They told the neighbor, "That was a groundhog out by my shed," and we're all like at 11:30 at night, 14 rounds out of a 9mm.
They got big groundhogs there, apparently.
Tennessee's got big groundhogs, I guess. Nocturnal groundhogs.
To answer River's question about the chemtrails, yeah, I think that's a thing that's been going on for a long time. I don't know if that what the purpose of it is. I don't think it's anything great.
Right.
But I do think that that's something that's been going on probably since around Vietnam. And
yeah,
for KC's question, I just think it's just like the Billy ape. It's just an undiscovered species of North American great ape. Okay. I could be wrong. It could be, a relic hominid. I personally don't think so. I think it's just, and I've used this theory more than once, and DA's kind of backed it up with that too. Like, how many different species of bear are there? How many different types of bear? They're still bear, but how different is a grizzly from a panda? How different is a black bear from a sun bear? Same thing with sharks. How vastly different is a great white from a nurse shark? They're still sharks. Dogs. How different is a Saint Bernard from a Chihuahua? They're completely different, but they're still dogs. I think that's just the same thing with these. I think there's different subspecies, but they're all still in. If you want to call them Sasquatch, because obviously the term Bigfoot wasn't coined until the late 40s from that newspaper article where the guy said Bigfoot terrorizes logging camp, and it stuck. Same thing with the Dogman. That phrase was coined in like 88, I believe, from that DJ in Michigan calling it the Michigan Dog. Mm-hmm. But before that, it was werewolf, wolfman, and even back to the first written history, cynocephaly. So I think it's all the same thing. It's just terminology changes, and a lot of times that's human nature. We think that, oh well, it's called a Dogman, so that must mean it's something totally new. So that must mean the government is doing this because before that it was called same thing with Bigfoot and Sasquatch and all that. If you go back and look before us white folks had the term Bigfoot, go back and look at all the accounts of hairy man or wild man or things like that were how many wild men did Borneo have that got stole out of Borneo and put on a track or in a train car on a track, and it wrecked and dropped them off in God knows how many different counties in this country? Because if you go back and look at it, me and Dave was talking about that one night. How many wild men of Borneo were captured and set loose in this country from Civil War on up to modern times? A lot, because that's what they called them back then. Same thing with, if you look at Saint Christopher, he was called the dog-headed saint, and in Catholic iconography, he was actually depicted as having the head of a wolf or a.
Yeah, that's That you had a good point about that. I never really did think too much into that about possibly escaping from rail cars and.
Well, go back. If you go back and look at all those articles from like every other week, a train wrecked and the wild man from a circus train wrecked and the wild man of Borneo escaped.
Yeah. There's so many ways people can misidentify stuff. It's just.
But there again, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You see something like that, and you're not open to say, "Oh, it's this." Your brain's automatically going to tell you it's something else. So, how many of these sightings? And I think it works in reverse. In the reverse, that a lot of these people that are seeing what they think are bears, that they just see it. That's so. How many of these sightings, or how many more of the sightings would be there if people were actually seeing what they were seeing and not fooling themselves into believing something else? And River, DA and I would love to come down there and do some hunting. You just got to figure out how we can carry our guns.
Yeah, that whole getting rifles into Australia is a bit of a.
Yeah. Have to act like we're hunting something, because I'm sure you can hunt down there, but
I'm not defending myself with a boomerang. We're not.
But yeah, I think that a lot of the mindset and a lot of the I don't know what the best term to use for, but and it's mainstream media. It's the way people are brought up. It's not cool. You're looked down on if you're in this community. It's not as bad now. I mean, because the community is growing, and the internet has helped that out. And a lot of it is being helped out with, you got a lot of these people who are to the point that they're like us. They're too old to really give a damn about it anymore, and they're just gonna, they're gonna tell you what they feel. I used to worry about, oh well, how's that gonna look? I'm a police officer. For me to say that I don't care. I mean, I saw what I saw. If you believe me, fine. If you don't, fine. You want to make fun of me, fine. I don't care, because I'm too old and too ornery, and I just don't. Yeah, it doesn't hurt my feelings if you don't believe me.
Yeah, and that's what happened with me. I just got to the point where I never talked to really anybody about it since 2007. Even after all the weird stuff that Josh and I'd seen around the farm, and he's been with me a lot of times, even with that trackway up in the mountains. But our other buddy that's with us, we try to keep him a little sheltered from it, because he's the one that I told you would try to run off in the middle of the night, end up breaking his ankle. We'd have to go out there and get him, drag him back to the campfire. Yeah, most people around here, they just, if it does exist, it's out in the Pacific Northwest. That's the way everybody always acted. Then you try to tell them, no, it's around here.
Well, and for a long time, even people who believe were like, oh well, it's only in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. There, it's not anywhere else. And then you get things like, the Legend of Boggy Creek, you shows no. Just, I mean,
yeah,
it's in Falk, Arkansas.
Here's a prime example of people, not thinking, just saying, oh, it's an owl or whatever. Same guy. Josh and Sam and I've all hunted for years in the same areas back here. Well, Sam was going in before the rest of us one morning. He gets out there and he goes, I heard some weird stuff this morning. And for a few years, he never really expanded on what he heard. And then he described it to me a couple months ago, finally. And this was probably 10 years ago this happened. It was the whoops.
Yeah. Well,
And it was right down where he was going. And he still went and sat in that stand.
well, I had
And it was
he's
2
back.
hours before daylight.
I had a guy that used to work with us, and then he left and went to the sheriff's office, and now he's back working with us again. But while he was at the sheriff's office, he went out on a call. Well, it wasn't a call. I take it back. There's just an area that right now it's just kind of a pull off, and he said it was an area where a lot of kids like to go pull off the side of the road because you can't see the cars from the road. So the sheriff's office usually has to go down there and check. So he was driving by and said, I'm gonna go check and see if there's anybody over there. Well, he goes over or starts going down there, and there's like 4 cars, and of course they're all backed in, so he can't read their plate, so he's gonna have to get out. So he said he's driving down the road, a little gravel road. He's got his window rolled down. He's driving real slow, and he's got his lights turned off. So number one, they don't see him. Number 2, they don't hear him because he's driving real slow on this gravel.
That's how I used to sneak up on people trying to spotlight back here.
Yep. So he said as he's getting ready to go around the curve just before he was going to get to where he would turn his lights on where they wouldn't have a chance to run, he would be able to see them. He said he's kind of easing around the curve, and like I said, he had his window down. He said, I heard this grunt, growl, whatever you want to call it. He said, and it sounded like it was only 15, 20 feet away from me out in the wood. He said, I couldn't see anything, but it was off to my left, out my driver's side. And I said, well, what did it sound like? And he said, dude, I can't duplicate it. It was just, he said it was loud. And he used the word it vibrate. I said, so you felt it in your chest? He said, yeah. He said, it was like it washed through me. And I'm like, okay. And he said, and I know, he said, people have told me it was a hog. He said, I've been hog hunting all my life. He said, I've never heard a hog sound like this before. He said, it wasn't a bear. He said, I've heard bears grunt and growl. He said, it was not that. So he started doing some research after that. He knew that I was into this, but he wanted to do a little research before he talked to me. He started talking to some people around that area because he went to school around that area, that part of the county, and he run across this old legend, I guess is the best way to describe it, called the Monkey of Mall Bridge. Well, he was close to Mall Bridge Road, which is in the Clemson Central area of my county, and supposedly it's this legend about this, like they said, a monkey of Mall Bridge, but he said it was, from what he could describe or what he could understand or take away from it, the people he talked to about it, the way they described it's a Bigfoot that they're describing.
Uh-huh.
So, and there's Rodney, if you're still in the chat, and Sonia, you might know, there's an area in Central around Clemson that's owned by, it's called Fance Grove. It's owned by Clemson University. I think it's still owned by Clemson University. But there is a legend up there, and I can't remember what, I think it's called the Look Behind. Is what it's called. I think that's
Sound good.
no, but if you start looking into some of the things that people have said, a lot of it is some of the same thing that, like people in deer stands that there was nothing there, and all of a sudden there's a Bigfoot behind them, or they heard something behind them. A lot of it's that type of. So there's a lot of stuff around this area that people, but it's getting people to talk about it because, people like I said, people are so used to getting made fun of that it's hard to get them to open up about it. It's hard to get people to believe that, number one, you're not going to make fun of them. Number two, that you're not going to, go use them as a joke or something like that.
Yeah, I ain't got time to make fun of anybody because I was the guy that was up close and personal with one screaming, rattling my body. So I get it.
Yeah, so that's just there.
And I haven't even seen one. That was bad enough.
I've had my share of encounters, and some of them were really good, and some of them pretty dang scary. The one in the LBL was pretty scary. The second one that Jessica and I had
I
in
remember you
Georgia.
talking about that one.
Yeah, that one. The top three scariest ones were me and DA and Noah in Joe Ball the first time, the second time in Georgia with Jessica, and then that LBL. And I think every single one of those, I feel like those were Dogman. Because I don't, other than the very first Bigfoot encounter that I had when I was a kid, and it was because I was an 8-year-old kid, that's why it was scary. None of the Bigfoot encounters that I've had have been scary. Like the first time that I was up there with Jessica in the exact same spot, I didn't feel scared. Even the kind of how it kind of got a little hairy in Combs Ferry that time, this last time, towards the end. But I think it was because we crossed that line we weren't supposed to cross. But before that, it wasn't scary. It was just, it felt more curious. And even when we crossed,
the time I got screamed at was more like I was just spooked. I wouldn't say there was fear. The T-Rex roar.
he's talking. I think you talking about Texas, the Roar Texas got on camera or on audio. Text from Texas Front Porch.
Yeah, it's either that or the T-Rex roar, I think.
I'm back.
Yeah, I'd like to. Why don't we talk about that incident with Jessica? Because I remember I've heard you.
Well, and that'll I can loop Sonia's question into that. Why I think the Dogman is scarier. Because so the first time that I went to that spot with Jessica,
and that was Georgia, right?
Yeah, it was in Georgia. And I've been sworn to secrecy because they still do a lot of so don't ask
areas, isn't it?
Yeah, don't ask. I'm not going to say what part of Georgia. I'm just going to say it was in Georgia. That's as much as I can say. But anyway, the first time we were
on Creepy Mountain.
Huh?
That's the area that Mark researches.
Oh, yeah, Creepy Mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so the meet and greet that was going on that night wasn't as eventful as we thought it was going to be. It was, it was only like 2 or 3 people there at this time. So she was like, "Hey, you want to go in the woods at one of my," because we were pretty close from the hotel. We were pretty close to where one of her research areas are. So she's like, "You want to go in the woods and do some scouting and see if we can run into something tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah." So we went back to the hotel, each went to our rooms, changed, got ready, for Bigfoot encounters. Of course, I had everything that I needed to have just in case, because you could run into the Greater North American meth head.
Oh yeah, I've encountered some of those hunting.
Those Mexican Americans. I mean, there's a chance. But anyway, so we jump in her car, we take off up to the research spot, and you remember how I described getting out of the car in Joe Ball the first time, and it was like stepping into a vacuum. Complete opposite. We got out of the car and up on the mountain, pitch black, but I mean there were just crickets and everything was just like going crazy. It was like being at a concert. So we walk up the hill a little ways, and we're sitting looking around talking, and we're literally 2 feet apart, but we're almost having to yell so we could hear each other just because it was so loud. And then all of a sudden, it was like you unplugged the jukebox. Everything just went quiet just like that. I mean, just like Literally, it was just like, ah. And I'm like, okay, that's strange. So I'm looking at her. I'm looking over her shoulder. She's looking over my shoulder. And I'm like, I don't know if I saw a shadow move or I just got a feeling or what, but there was something behind her in the woods. And I said, there's something behind you over there. She goes, there's something behind you. Because we're kind of in the middle of this little field area, but there were woods all the way around us. And then she turned around and looked back down towards her car. And she's like, I think there's something down there on the other side of the car, too. Maybe we ought to head back down to the car. And I said, maybe. I don't want to get cut off from the vehicle. But that was more or less a situational thing, situational awareness. It wasn't like they were doing anything that made me feel like they were trying to do that or they won't hurt us. That was just, I don't want to be put in that situation. So let's go back down to the car. So we went back down to the car, and as we get to the car, she had her back facing up, facing where we were coming from. So I was looking up the hill, or looking at her, but looking up the hill. And as I'm looking at her, I see a big shadow moving across behind her where we were just at. So probably 100, 150 yards from where we were at that point. I said, turn around now. And she turned around and she saw it just as it went off into the shadow of the trees. But there was clearly something walking across the top of that hill where we were just at. But there again, it was just a cool experience. There was nothing malevolent about it. It didn't feel like it just felt like it was a curiosity type thing. I didn't feel like we were in any kind of danger or anything like that.
Yeah.
So like, cool. So fast forward to the next year, same conference, roughly the same time of year. So back again, she's like, hey, you want to go back up again, see if we can run into something? I'm like, yeah. Well, this time we had her son Ben with us. That was the only difference in the first two times was Ben was with us this time. So we go back up there. This time it was like it was when we stepped out at Joe Bald. Now this is where I think the difference comes in. I feel like it when me and DA and Noah were in Joe Bald the first time, I think it was Dogman. It was stalking us. Okay, we're sitting up there, and I'm sitting there looking off into the woods, letting my eyes adjust because you know when you first get out into pitch black, you know you can kind of see stuff, but you're not sure if it's just your eyes adjusting from the light that was in the car, the interior light, the ambient light around you. So I sat there for about 5-10 minutes, just letting my eyes just adjust because I was seeing movement, but I thought, okay, this is just my eyes adjusting.
Yeah.
About 10 minutes into it, I'm still seeing movement. Well, I'm looking like straight ahead. I kind of glanced back over my shoulder. Ben was right behind me, and then Jessica was behind him. Well, Ben's looking off to my right because I'm looking straight ahead. Ben's looking off to my right. So I craned my neck on around. Well, Jessica's looking over to the left. So we're all three looking in different directions. Ben kind of taps me on the elbow, and I looked around and said, what, bud? He said, there's something moving over there. And he's pointing this way. And I'm like, what'd you see? And he said, I saw some shadows moving. I said, okay, just keep an eye on it. We're good. And Jessica said, she leaned up to Ben and said, where did you see movement? And he pointed over there. She goes, and she looked at me and she's like, and pointed the way she was looking. I said, and I pointed straight ahead. And so she said, well, you want to go up on top of the hill a little ways? I said, nah. And I had already cleared leather at this point. Didn't clear leather the first time until we got back down to her car. And that was I just wanted to have it this time I felt like I needed it. Because I already had it cleared and had it up under my arm like this, just so it was there. And we waited about 2-3 more minutes, and I looked at Jessica. I said, get back to the car. And zero argument. No, why? It was just, she was just like, come on, Ben, stay in between me and Robbie. Well, when I said that Jessica cleared leather, so we're turning and walking, got Ben in between us, and we get about 15, 20 feet, and something just said turn around. So I turned back around, and have you seen the movie Underworld, the first one?
Mm-hmm.
You remember the scene where Celine's out in the hallway right before she does her little shooting a little circle around her?
Mm-hmm.
When it flashed and you had those lichens coming at her, and they were moving like up on the ceilings and the roof, and they were just, it was like they were leapfrogging each other and doing all that. When I turned around, I saw 3, 4, maybe 5 shadows doing that on the ground coming at us. Well, as soon as when I turned around, they stopped. And I just, over my shoulder, I said, get to the car, get it turned on now. I didn't scream it, didn't, I just said, go. So she's, all right, come on, Ben, let's go. So they kind of started moving a little bit faster. So I just started backing down just looking over my shoulder ever so often, backing down the hill, but stayed facing that way. And every time I looked back, they weren't moving like they were the first time, but you could tell they were still moving. And so she gets down to the car, she gets it cranked up. I get to the car, jump in, and we take off. I felt like we were being hunted that night.
Yeah.
So then the exact same feeling for me, DA.
Virginia.
Well, exact same feeling that I had, or I had that night. I had it again when me, DA, and Noah were in Joe Bald. Then the other time I had that feeling was in LBL. All 3 of those times, I believe it was Dogman. And those are my 3 Dogman experiences. And to answer your question, Sonny, about why I think they're scarier, because they were hunting us.
Mm-hmm.
They were actively hunting us, trying to pick somebody off. I've never felt that way around. And I've never been around a Gugway, as far as I know. I would probably feel that way if I was in that situation. But any of the Sasquatch encounters I've had, I've never. And Johnny and I've been paced out of those woods where we research all the time. Never felt anything other than it's just there to make sure we don't do anything we're not supposed to. Same thing in Combs Ferry that night. I really didn't feel until right there at the end, like I said.
Yeah.
And I still really didn't feel like it was. I felt like if we'd have gone with our original plan and there had been one person to stay there, it probably would have been a different situation. But right up until that point, I didn't feel nowhere near as fearful as I did the other 3 times.
Yeah. West Virginia was the only time I was really that spooked. I mean, I told you about the time I was in the stand, I had something looking at me, but as soon as I, turned my attention to that, it went away. Whatever was in West Virginia wanted me to go around that rock.
Yeah.
And I was not going through there.
And just to be clear, Sonny, I didn't think that was like, I just think when I say it was shadows, I just think that it was so dark. That's all I could see was the shadows. But but the way they were moving, I know that some people describe hellhounds and demonic and things like that with Dogman. Still, there again, I think it's just a creature. I think it's an animal. Now, does that mean that there aren't things out there who might take this? I think if somebody, the ones that have described the demonic and the hellish and these kind of encounters, I think, I believe demons are real. I believe that they are out there. I believe they're actively in a war against us. But I do believe demons will take the form that scares you the most, or they can get the most out of you. And if a werewolf is something that scares you, or is like one of your deepest fears, then that's what you're going to see. But you're going to see something like they see in the movies, because that's what you think. Well, when you think werewolf, that's what you think of. I think an actual Dogman. I don't think it's that. I think there's some of them that might be similar to that, but I don't think they're supernatural creatures. That's there again, just my opinion. Nobody's an expert. I just think that's what, whether it's a leftover population from a dire wolf or some type of descendant from a dire wolf, or whether it is actually because there's accounts of Roman legions fighting these things, Roman legionnaires. So for it to go back that far, written history wise, there's got to be something to it.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
River,
be fun to know you're being hunted. Yeah.
River, I don't know that I've seen shadow people. Those shadows that night, I believe, were dogmen. I just believe it was a pack of dogmen hunting us. But it was predatory behavior. I like I said, I've been a hunter my entire life. I'm a police officer. Human predators and animal predators are the same. Predators are predators, and predatory behavior is predatory behavior. So if you've seen it, you know what it looks like, no matter what it's coming from. That all three of those times that I discussed, it was predatory behavior.
Yeah, you get that hair start standing up.
Yep.
I mean, I couldn't make myself take another step in West Virginia. My legs just would not go anymore.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not saying that supernatural stuff is not out there. Like I said, I do believe in demons and angels. I'm a Christian, and I believe 100% that there's a spiritual war going on. So I believe that some of the things that people, skinwalkers, Wendigo, things like that. Right.
Yeah.
I believe all that stuff is real. And I don't believe any of that stuff is out there for any good to any of us. But I believe a lot of it is gonna manifest in a way that's gonna, because if that's its job is to scare you and do you harm, it's not going to appear as a Care Bear, an Ewok, or anything like that. It's going to appear as something that's going to scare you.
Mm-hmm.
Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I tried to think of the.
Yeah.
What did you do, Ray?
I saw the most wholesome character ever, Mr. Stay Puft.
What a movie.
Yeah, there's a guy I know that used to haul manure for us about right on the other side of the river, saw a crawler come across the road and climb over the guardrail and disappear.
Yeah. That's what I say. I believe stuff like that.
He said it shielded itself too, I guess it was blinding it from the headlights.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that's pretty close too.
Yeah.
There's
a lot
no
of stuff down in there.
Oh yeah.
There's no experts in any of this. It's all theory, conjecture. We say that all the time on our show. Anybody that says, "Hey, I'm an expert in this," is trying to sell you something.
Yep.
But DA and I like to pride ourselves, and Doc too, and Steve. We all like to pride ourselves on the fact that we look at stuff from an evidentiary standpoint.
Yeah.
It's just like, a lot of people like to talk about portals and things like that. Now, are we saying portals don't exist? No, we're not. We know CERN opened a portal when they did that with that the Super or the Mega Collider, whichever one it was. I can't. But we know they opened a portal. Portal where? Who knows? But if these things could open portals and go into portals, and even 1% of them were as dangerous as we think they are, why ain't more people just disappeared out of their houses? Because if they could open portals, what's stopping them from opening a portal right here and jerking me out off camera right now and taking me somewhere and killing me? What's stopping them from doing that? What I'm saying is, you got to start at point A. You can't go from point A to point Z without hitting all the other points in between. You have to work it, because if you do this, if you start here at A and say, I'm going all the way to Z, and Z doesn't work out, where do you go from there? There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
You have to go A, B, C, D, and so on until you get to whichever answer Occam's razor. Once you've eliminated everything that's logical and the illogical is left, and there you go. But you have to eliminate it first. That's why people talk about, well, I was following these tracks and they just stopped, so it must have went to a portal. Why is that the first thing that has to have happened?
Uh-huh.
Bears, grizzlies in specific, rabbits. Those are two animals just right off the top of my head that backtrack, that know how to backtrack and will backtrack on you.
Yeah, true. Yep.
A bear and a rabbit can do it. Why not a highly intelligent primate? If you don't know what you're looking for, you're not going to know that something backtracked. Casey will tell you. I showed that in the class that I did in this thing in Ohio. If you don't know what to look like, and you just see a track, if you're looking at it and you don't get down and look and see the differences in disbursement and all this kind of other stuff that goes on in a track, then it's going to look like, oh, they just stopped. So they must have disappeared. Scotty must have beamed them up. No, they backtracked. My opinion again. They backtracked, jumped up on this rock, jumped about 15 feet that way, went up a tree, and went about 30 yards down before they came down. Why is that less plausible than they walked through a portal? Same thing with the clear hair shafts. And I love asking this question to people that want to argue this. What color is a polar bear if you shave it? White. Nope. You shave a polar bear, it's black. Why is it black? Well, where does it live? It lives in the Antarctic, or it lives in really cold, really, really cold areas. What does black do? Black absorbs heat, right?
Yep.
So if I'm a polar bear and I'm living in this harsh environment, I need to get as much heat as I possibly can. So my skin's black, it absorbs that heat and keeps it into that insulation and that blubber layer. So, and then the next question is, well, what color is a polar bear's fur? And what do most people say? It's white. No, it's not. It's clear. It looks white, but why does it look white? It's because that's what it has to blend into.
Yeah.
If you see a polar bear in the zoo and it's around a lot of greens and grays and things like that from whatever enclosure they got it in, it does not look snow white like it does out in the Arctic, because it doesn't. So if a polar bear is hunting a seal and it's waiting at an ice floe or an ice hole for a seal to come up, and I'm sure you've probably seen it, but you just didn't know you've seen them sitting there like this, right?
Uh-huh.
With their paws in front of them. Why do you think they do that? What color is their nose? Nose is black, right? So if a seal's coming up to take a breath and it looks up and it sees that polar bear's nose, that big black nose, oh, I ain't going up there. But it sits down there with its paws in front of its face like this. The seal can't look up and see its eyes or see its nose.
Like, why do we use face paint?
That is adaptive camouflage.
Yeah.
Think of owls. Think of stick bugs. Think of all the skates and rays in the ocean that blend into the sand. I mean, things blend in for a reason.
You got something that stands still in the woods and you're not moving, you're going to walk right past that.
That goes back to the question I asked you about the deer. How many deer have you ever shot if you didn't see it move first? So all we have to do to answer a lot of these questions that we have about these creatures is look to what we already know in nature. Adaptive camouflage, the backtracking, all this stuff can be answered by what we already know. So that's the question we ask all the time on DAX Machina is, why is it so hard to look at this stuff that we already know and not apply it to these creatures and say, it's just a creature. It's born with a natural ghillie suit. It doesn't want to be found. We see that with deer and turkey during their respective hunting seasons. Why is it so hard for that? Well, there again, that's that train. It just blows my mind that people want to argue. Oh no, you know, they're interdimensional beings that walk through a portal. That why? How is that? How is that the first logical conclusions you come up with? Why is it not okay? We got this, and this already in nature that can do this. Why is it not feasible for this, you know, to do?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's like people are grasping, reaching for that extra element, you know.
Yeah.
And there, like I said, eliminate the logical stuff first. Then if you can't explain it with that stuff, okay, then we gotta look at it. But if you can explain it, adaptive camouflage, backtracking, things like that, which are very plausible explanations for all this stuff.
Yeah, and like you say, the trackways that just stopped. I mean, who has went out there and actually physically got down and looked to see, you know, any alterations in a single, you know, like a singular movement, be it forward or coming back. So nobody probably.
And the simple, and I can tell you 5 people off the top of my head that I've had, and I'm not going to mention them, so don't worry about that part. But that I've had this argument with, and one in particular was really satisfying because he said, "You can't tell me," and by saying that, I know DA knows who I'm talking about, and probably a few others in the chat. You can't tell me that they don't go into portals. You can't. There's no way you can explain it, or I can't argue it down. I said, "Oh yeah, I can." I said, "Do you really want to take that challenge?" I said, "I'll bet you a paycheck right now." He said, "I said, I know 2 people off the top of my head right now that I could call, and you turn around and I could send them in the woods 20 feet and you'd never find them." And he wanted to argue about it. I said, so I went through the whole. See, I told you he knows exactly who I'm talking about. I said, and I went through the whole thing that I just went through, spiel about the backtracking and all this kind of stuff. And he wanted to try to argue with it. I said, okay, what's your primary point of impact when you're walking? And at first he was like, huh? I said, what part of your foot hits the ground first if you're walking forward? He said, my heel. Yep. I said, where's the disbursement going to go? There again. Huh? I said, when your foot hits the ground and it picks up dirt, grass, sticks, whatever you step on, and that gets dispersed from the track, which way is that going to go if you're walking forward? He said, to the front. I said, yeah, there you go. I said, so what's your primary point of impact if you're walking backwards? He said, my toes. I said, the ball of your foot. Yeah, close enough. I said, so which way is your disbursement going to be? Well, I guess it's going to be to the back. I'm like, yep. I said, and all these tracks that you're telling me about, that you've looked at and you've seen, and you've made this monumental discovery and this monumental breakthrough in Bigfoot research that they walk into portals. Have you ever got down and looked at a track and seen disbursement and seen which way it goes and all? And there was a certain other person in the car that knew where I was going with this, and that person was laughing their tail off because they knew that there was no argument that he's like, well, no. I said, he said, well, that don't prove. I said, it proves that you didn't do half of the research that you said you did. And he was like,
yeah. Speechless. Rendered him speechless.
Yeah. How do you argue with that? Now,
right.
He couldn't. He could not argue with the fact. I said, yeah, I may not have proved that my point was right, but what I did prove is you can't prove that your part was right either.
Right. Yeah. No. 5 a.m. comes early.
Well, you wouldn't have to worry about me if Kumbo's on because I don't talk too much when he's on because
nobody does.
You have time to. You know, he was one of the
interesting.
he was one of the first ones I ever listened to that brought up anything about them quadrupedal.
Yeah.
And there again, if they do that a lot of the times, I think a lot of these people that say, "Oh, it was just a bear," that's what they were seeing, and their brains just not allowing them to see it or say any otherwise.
I learned more listening to them on Bigfoot Outlaws than I learned listening to anything else. Because everything they talked about made more sense to me than anything I ever looked at.
Roger Williams will give him a fight too. We talking about something in the chat over here. Yeah.
It's not as far out there as everybody thinks if you just think about it from a common sense.
Common sense. Everything he's saying is 100% common sense with the trackway and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and you know,
But
and it's really something I never really thought about, and I never really thought about portals either. I can't say I do or don't believe in them, but
well,
I mean,
your backtracking makes 100% sense.
Those
Yeah.
things are real.
What's that?
I know ghosts are real because I've seen them.
Yeah.
but that's a perfect example. I've never seen a ghost, but I got plenty of friends who I trust who have. So I'm not going to sit there and say, "Oh, ghosts don't exist."
No.
You know, he's had supernatural encounters. I've never had one, so why is it? What gives me the right to say nope,
Yeah.
they don't, and discredit what he says? It's the same thing with Bigfoot. You know, I've seen Bigfoot. So what gives these guys, like especially the ones that are, "Oh, I believe in ghosts and aliens, but Bigfoot, that's a stretch."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
I fall in. When it comes to ghosts, I fall into the I'm not looking for them category. So I don't. My
right there
wife,
with you, Derek.
I've never looked for anything that I ended up running into. So,
yeah.
And River, I don't know how I would handle a 7-foot roo. I mean, I'd give it a try, but you know, kangaroos, in my opinion, are just deer that went to jail and got buff. And Phyllis, yeah, I think Johnny and I saw one that night when we was out at my dad's house looking for that the wolf creature. I talked about that a little bit earlier in the show.
A kangaroo.
Yeah.
He said, "How would I handle a 7-foot roo?" That's a deer that's went to jail.
Yeah. Yeah, the UFO stuff, 100%. At least the government's starting to come off with some stuff.
Yeah, and they're, you know,
But
I think they're doing soft disclosures on everything. Yeah, we talked about that before.
Well,
that
Bigfoot in the they actually put that out in places you can shoot them.
Well, if you look at the Army Field Manual back in the 70s and 80s, Bigfoot was listed as a possible creature that you could run across in the woods.
Now, I highly doubt they'd put that in there as a joke.
Yeah. So I mean, it just it cracks me up sometimes to think about how our government does things. But you know, that's just like the theory about Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, I think Teddy believed in all this stuff. I think that's why he set aside the 88 million acres of national forest. You know, DA and I and Doc and Steve, we've done multiple shows on this, which was funny. I think the first show we did on this was about maybe a year and a half ago. And the other day I saw was scrolling through YouTube and I see a channel called the Lore Lodge. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but the title of that show was "Did Teddy Roosevelt see Bigfoot?" And I watched it, and this thing had 17,000 views. And I'm not saying he got it from us. This is the first time I'd ever seen the channel. Pretty big channel compared to all the rest of us. 17,000 views on this. Pretty much exact same theories that we've talked about. That Roosevelt was actually Bauman. That he was that he did that to protect his or somebody advised him to do that to protect his political career.
Yeah.
That he was back because DA's talked about this several times that Teddy was on the sculling crew in college, and his position was Bauman.
Yes.
Well, this guy never had a first name; it was just Bauman. If the president of the United States wrote a book and put you in there, if you had talked to him about that, would you not use that for everything? Hi, hey, that's me. Nobody ever come forward and claimed that they were Bauman. Why? That to me is one of the linchpins of this. Is nobody ever
Yeah.
came forward and said that.
When you think about
And-
how much time he spent out in the big country, he was everywhere. I
Yeah.
mean,
And-
he'd go away for months at a time.
Well, the very first thing that he did, his first act, first official act, one of his first official acts. I don't know if it was the actual first. Might have been. DA could probably answer that better than I could. But one of his first acts was setting aside that 88 million acres for national forest and said, and no president from him on has ever tried to touch that. What's one of the first things that a incoming president wants to do to an outgoing president? I want to take away what they did. I got to put my stamp on it.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever
Touched it.
88. Tell me there's not 88 million, or there's not stuff that can be natural resources and things like that can be exploited off 88 million acres.
Right.
That's bigger than some countries.
Yep.
I mean, so why is that something that's never been even
Untapped.
And there's a quote unquote fictional book, I think, about him supposedly killing a Bigfoot.
Well, Daniel Boone supposedly killed one. Davy Crockett supposedly killed. Daniel Boone supposedly had a Ozarks howler stuffed in his personal collection, but all that stuff disappeared. It's probably down.
Back in the days
It's probably underneath the Smithsonian with all those, the bones from Lovelock Cave, the giant bones from Lovelock Cave, and all that other stuff. I mean, between the Smithsonian and the Vatican, there is no telling. I think that's where a lot of the stuff from the Library of Alexandria is in the basement of the Vatican. That's a whole nother show too. We've done shows on that too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crazy stuff.
It's all a big secret. Big secret.
Don't worry, I got tinfoil inside my cowboy hat.
Oh,
Big
man's so
secret.
shiny.
But I mean, it's people. A lot of people, and I'm one of the most patriotic people. I love my country, but people sometimes like to think our government is so benevolent and kind, and we're always the good guys in the movies and things like that. Not so much. I mean, think about it. This is a government that taught or was trying to teach dolphins, or not try to, did teach dolphins to put mines on ships in Vietnam. If they're going to teach a dolphin to do that, what makes you think they're not going to weaponize something like Bigfoot or a Dogman?
I mean, we weaponize dogs.
Yeah.
We seem to be pretty good at that.
And we weaponize men.
Yeah.
So why not weaponize a dog man? And we know it is a known fact that Russia was trying to create super soldiers out of apes, crossing apes and humans.
Well, what about all the weird stuff that Hitler was doing?
Oh yeah, I mean, you could do 5 different shows on the stuff that Hitler was doing, and see, we talked about that too. Things you see in movies, a lot of times people look at them and say, "Oh, that's far fetched." A lot of times, stuff that you see in movies, the movies are behind what's actually there.
Yeah.
So all that stuff that, especially from Captain America, the First Avenger, they like to act like all that stuff is Hollywood hoopla, but Hitler did a lot of that stuff. He may not have had a Hydra division like they had in there, but I guarantee you there was a division that went and did stuff that the Red Skull was actually doing in the movie. He had people that were actually doing that kind of stuff. I know he was looking for the Spear of Destiny. the spear that pierced Christ's side, because it was said that any army that carried that couldn't be defeated. He was looking for that. That is documented that he was out looking for that.
Well, he was working on Lyme disease too. They were going to weaponize that.
Yeah. He anything. He was very, very well versed and knowledgeable of the occult, and he knew the Bible inside and out. And that's, I've always been told that, if you're going to argue with somebody about the Bible or somebody that is against the Bible, you better be careful because they probably know more about it than you do. So,
what's to say they weren't going to try to weaponize Bigfoot?
I probably were. Yep, I've heard a lot of stories about the Yowie too, River. Y'all got a lot of stuff out there that.
Yeah, River's got quite a few.
Yeah, what's the big Komodo dragon like thing that they got out there? Help me out, River. It's like a big monitor lizard, but it's supposed to be about the size of a T-Rex, I think.
No, that's not the bunyip. The bunyip's a water creature.
Yeah, they actually made a movie about the big lizard thing not too long ago.
Not a Komodo.
Well, I mean, it's a big monitor lizard, kind of like I said Komodo because that's the closest thing I could think to it. But
there's a lot of weird stuff in Australia.
Megalania, or maybe that was what it really was, and or what it was closestly related to.
That's not something I want to come across.
It was supposed to be like the size of a city bus.
Goanna. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen goannas in a lot of shows and movies and things like that. They're like that. This thing's, like I said, it's supposed to be the size of a bus.
I don't want to be near the damn thing. That's big.
I want to say a lot of the sightings have been around. What's the big rock out there called? The big red rock that looks like a big table set in the middle of the.
I'm trying to think. I'm not really sure.
Anyway, I've heard a lot of stories about stuff like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of stories about pterodactyls too.
Yep. Well, we got those stories here in the States too.
Yeah. We know somebody's seen one.
Yep.
And we've got a local legend.
That's it. Uluru. That's it, River.
We've got a local legend around here called the Snallygaster. I don't know if DA's ever heard about that one.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because they did a Snallygaster episode of Ames, Mountain Monsters.
Oh, Mountain Monsters.
Because remember, Wild Bill called it the Galley Snatcher instead of the Snallygaster.
That's right. Galley Snatcher.
Because they were talking about the Snallygaster and he couldn't say it right. He kept saying the Galley Snatcher. And they're like, "No, Bill, Snallygaster. That's what I said."
Snallygaster has been a legend around here since like the early, probably like late 1800s.
Ayers Rock.
Yeah, it's called Uluru Rock now. But that's where a lot of the sightings that I've read about were at, or around that area.
We do need to do an episode on Snallygaster. We got to do our research.
What's that?
We got to do a Snallygaster episode.
Yeah, sometime. Yeah, that goes back way back here. Legends of Maryland with the Dwayyo, which is Dogman. Maryland Dogman.
That's the Maryland
version of the Dogman. That's old.
Supposedly there was
way back.
Supposedly there was a feud between the Dwayyo and the Snallygaster.
Many historical stories of it. myths.
That the
mythological
general
stuff.
public doesn't know about.
If you're not looking for it, even in that sense, you're going.
And then we got
If
the
you're not
goat
interested in the subject, you're probably not going to read about it.
Then
So
we got the Goat Man of Beltsville.
I mean,
yeah, the Goat Man. We got we got something else too. Lizard Man.
well, we've got the Lizard Man here in South Carolina. The Lizard Man Escape War Swamp. I've actually on what's really out there. That was the last show that Lance was a part of. It's probably one of our more popular shows, but they still have sightings of that thing to this day. But it's one of those three-toed tracks and things like that. Could be a gugway, but the thing that strikes me about that and why that's something that is really could be there. Lance told the story on the show. He goes down, he gets an alligator tag every year and goes down and hunts right around that area. And he said they got now my numbers may be off because it's been a while since I listened to that show, but like a 10-foot, 500-pound alligator, and they got it in 2 feet of water. Never saw it until it swam right up to the boat. So something that big can be in 2 feet of water that you can't see.
Right.
What I mean, and
Craig.
I don't know if I've ever heard of that before, River, but if 14 feet, it was probably giving that salty a run for its money. Yeah. Everything in Australia wants to kill or eat you, or both.
I just read that.
Yeah, that's what I was laughing about. Yeah.
Which is why I want to go so bad.
Greg, load the rifle. Yeah, those are scary too.
Greg, did you have to hit the Googles on how to spell succubus? Only asking because I would have had to do the same thing. So, So you saw a yowie and a salty going at it. Now that's probably a fight that I would pay to see. I would probably enjoyed that better than the dang Paul Tyson fight the other night.
Yeah, River's seen some pretty crazy stuff. He's also been struck by lightning.
Yeah, Australia's it's a wild country. Who knows what's out there?
You think about how big Australia is, God knows what kind of weird stuff.
Well, it's on my bucket list. I definitely want to go sometime.
Yeah, the bush is interesting out there.
Armed with a spear and a boomerang.
Yep. We're 2.5 hours, guys. I'm going to get ready to call it a wrap here. And take care of a few things here still.
Show.
What's that?
I said we're doing about DA's hour length. That's about where we're at.
Yep.
That's all right. Yeah, great information. Robby, awesome.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
Stuff, man. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on sometime when we'll get into some more stuff. Because I'm sure you guys will have some other stuff come up soon. We'll have to talk about.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Always.
I'm supposed to go back, or me and Doc are all supposed to go down sometime in January. Hopefully, we got to get 3 of us got to get together and figure out when in January that Doc doesn't have a class. So, because the last 2 times we've all supposed to get together, Doc had somebody who's going to take a class over for him, so he didn't have to teach and he could go. And they've canceled on him last minute, and so we're going to try to find one when River said. Absolutely, I would.
Yeah.
Love to, but so we want to try to find a time when Doc doesn't have something going on, so he can definitely get there.
Yeah, sometime when you're traveling up the East Coast, you might have to come up to Maryland.
I'd love to. I mean,
We'll take you to some spots around here. We can
There
probably
ain't nothing but Bigfoot and Dogman here, so
hey, that's what I like to go after. Anyway, I mean, it's nothing more than you giving me a time frame, and
yeah.
I work Monday through Friday at the school, so I can take especially during the summer, I can, because I don't have to work as much because school's not on, but I can take the time off. And I usually like a lot of times I'll take like Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off, and then Saturday and Sunday, and come back on Sunday,
Yeah.
and it's not that big of a deal. So, and
Yeah,
I've been there long
you're
enough.
at it wouldn't take long to get up here.
that's not too hard of a run.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it takes me 12 and a half hours to get to DAs. So,
Yeah.
Oh
We're
my
not
goodness.
that far.
Yeah.
We're not that far.
We're
And-
like 14 hours like down to where Greg is. Almost.
Yeah,
And
12, 13, something.
we're still trying to work out something, or a time frame to get to Greg's man cave. I mean,
I know.
we've been planning that for forever too, and we hadn't got anything situated yet with that. So we're going over there at some point too, because Greg's got a good place to go investigate. I mean, you ain't got to go anywhere. You just got to sit at the man cave and and
The
wait.
thing
Something
is,
will
you
happen.
don't even have to do anything at Greg's. You just got to show
Sit there
up.
and wait. Sit there and talk. Act normal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if
I'm waiting for a local rich dairy farmer I know to get us a helicopter so we can get to places quicker, but hasn't happened yet.
I'm not
especially
doing nothing, okay?
from what I've heard, if Misty's there, you ain't really got to do anything at all, because if Misty
Correct.
shows up, they're there.
Yeah.
I said, well, they've heard about crazy. They just want to see what it looks like in person.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard stuff happening when I've been on the phone with him when he's sitting inside. I fell asleep during the infamous tank slap. It woke me up. I actually heard it briefly, and then I fell asleep again.
Well, Greg, you get the grill and the fixings and everything ready, and give us a date and
Make it happen. Make it happen.
because 5 hours is nothing for me. Like I said, I drove 12 and a half to go to DA's.
That's a long ride. That's about it. Takes, if I would go to LBL from here, gosh, it would be what? Probably 13 and a half to 14 hours, probably.
It takes me about eight and a half to get to LBL, I think.
Yep. Yeah, we're way up here near Pennsylvania. So really, I can almost throw a rock and hit the Pennsylvania border from here. So
yeah, I've been to Pennsylvania. We used to go to me and a couple buddies used to go to Cigar Fest up in the Poconos.
yeah.
So we stopped off in Pottsville to tour the England company.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
That's what, I've never actually been there.
It's where, I mean, it's free. Obviously, you don't have to pay to go, or it didn't used to be, but it would be worth it if they charged. That was it's the country's oldest brewery, and they've still got the old limestone cave where they stored all the beer. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance to hit it, go for it, because they're going to give you free samples at the end anyway.
It's not far from us. Robbie, we're actually only like a little less than, maybe a little over an hour from Gettysburg.
Yeah. Hour and 20 minutes.
One of the most active,
hour and a half.
ghost sites.
Well, Michaud State Forest is
Uh-huh.
like 20 minutes just west of there, and I'm telling you right now, there's plenty of.
That
and even
place
Mary
is
will tell you,
active.
Michaud State Forest has got Bigfoot activity, tree
Yeah,
structures, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
I've always wanted to go.
There's
to
a lot of stories out of there.
I've always wanted
I
to go
know
just to
guys
see
that
the.
drove ghost home in their pickup from the battlefield.
Gettysburg's
They're
awesome.
hay.
If you haven't never been to Gettysburg, you
Yeah.
got to go. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We go multiple times a year.
I've always wanted to go.
Right
My
through.
dad's been he loves the Civil War, so any battlefield he's been to, those old plastic camera cases, he takes them with him and he
Okay.
scoops up some dirt. So he's got a whole shelf up at his house. It's like Gettysburg and Antietam and Bull Run and all the battlefields he's been to. He's got dirt from them.
Yeah, I was going to say Antietam's another good one.
I'm probably feeding spirits to my cows because some of the hay that we get out of Pennsylvania that they haul down here is from Gettysburg. There's a farm up there called Getty Acres, and they bale the battlefields.
Yep.
You're not allowed to disturb the ground or anything with discs. It's all no-till. You know, you could go down there and reseed, but they bale the fields.
Yep.
And the truck drivers have said that there's been some interesting situations while they're out there putting hay and stuff on trucks and all that. One of them actually gave a Confederate cavalry officer a ride home one night.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was sitting in the passenger seat of a Ford Excursion.
There's Bigfoot reports, not a lot, but some over around Little Round Top and Big Round Top as well.
Oh yeah. Well, when you were up there last time, Jerry, you saw some breaks.
Yeah, I sent you pictures of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have just been wind damage, but
It didn't look like wind damage to me.
one had some twist to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's pretty little secluded little valley there. where you can
Well, that's the
turn.
thing. When you see breaks in places like that, that's not from wind.
Not down. That is where this was at. Probably not.
Exactly.
I mean, it just had that look and feel about it. Little creek running through there, et cetera. It's all the prime things that makes you think, you know.
Yeah. There's a lot more to this area than a lot of people think. Well, nobody really thinks about anything like that, and they think East Coast.
Yeah, there's brown recluse spiders around. Yeah,
Yep.
indeed.
This has been a great show. I
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
appreciate you coming on, Robbie. We'll have to have
Yeah.
you back.
Well,
Maybe one night we'll have DA, both of you back on.
yeah, you get the two of us together. You know how it usually.
Yeah. I tell you, his show is still our most watched show. Well,
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
too, but
Well, he's kind of a big deal. I always like to give him a hard time about that because he's like, I'm just a hillbilly from those parts.
Yeah.
I was going to brag on him because I love reading books, and his by far been my favorite.
Yeah, I got to look into his books. I know I keep saying that, but I got to.
Yeah.
It's time. It's a time thing for me.
That's what I tell you.
Jeff will tell you.
Jeff, I told him you'd gone to do something. I told him, I said, look, if you want to check them out, and it's a time thing, I said, go over to Dixie Cryptid, let Cam read one to you. That way you can do what you can while you're driving down the road, while you're working in the yard, whatever. You can pop your earphones in and just put it on YouTube and listen to it, and you can hear the book, and that way you'll know, hey, this is pretty cool because Cam. And the thing about Cam reading it, and most everybody that's listening to Cam and Jeff, I'm sure you'll back me up on this. I love hearing Cam do it because it's just like the next person, because he'll be like, I love trying to hear him pronounce Mjolnir because you'll get 12 different pronunciations, and and if Colin Clark Thunder Guard instead of Thunder God, and then the next is fighting Thunder God, and then it's Thunder Guard again. But I love that because it's not so polished and professional, because it's personal. the way he reads it, and that's what I like about it. And I think that's what a lot of
I
people.
wish he had more time to read more stuff, but he's so
Yeah.
slammed. It's like,
Well, that's why we're doing the thing on Sunday night now, is because he is so slammed. And that, we were talking about that, and Diaz said, "Oh, should we read next?" Because we went through those short stories. I said, "Dude, let's go back and read Ragnarok," because there's a lot of people that don't know that, don't know that series.
yeah,
And that
that
series
was
is
the
gonna,
first series I read.
well, it's going to be, if you read that series and then you start with the other stuff, it's not apparent that the Ragnarok is as important as it's going to be.
Uh-huh.
As you start reading now, like from the Beast of Blunt Road on, you start figuring out, hey, wait a minute, that series is
Once
actually,
you get into the books, you will understand how everything goes together.
yep,
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
another thing. So you can Jerry, you can listen to us on Sunday nights, because last Sunday night we started, and
Ragnarok.
we went through 4.5 chapters, because I'm going to pick up on the middle of chapter 5 starting Sunday night.
Okay.
So you can listen to us read the book.
I'll do that. I'll try to jump in there and listen. Yep.
And that's the one we read right now. His very first book that he published in this. I think maybe Jeff, the Perdition's Flame, or I don't know if DA's still on or not. I think Ragnarok Rising was his first full series, but I think maybe Perdition's Flame. I'll get it in a minute. Those two sci-fi series, I think he actually wrote them first, and they got published later than that. But
God damn it, Greg.
Funny thing is, I caught him reading to him one day. Sorry. Anyway.
I'm trying to remember. See, I don't remember Perdition.
Oh, that was the
I gotta
chickens.
go
It
back
wasn't the
and look.
cows.
I don't remember Perdition's Flame.
yeah, I can't. I think that I know they were published after, but I can't remember. Anyway, they're loosely connected, but they're not 100% in the. But everything from Ragnarok Rising on is in the main timeline.
Yeah.
So
Cam Buckner has a voice that just draws you in, and
Yeah.
he's just got that persona. It just
yeah, me and DA don't.
stop and listen.
You can
I would say
listen
that.
to him going to bed. That's like
But yeah, early on, probably I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 years ago probably. I used to watch a lot of Cam Buckner.
Oh yeah,
Kerry Arnold through Kerry Arnold stuff.
Yeah,
too.
I'm dying for another Steve Lilly, because next to DA's stuff, that's like my
Yeah.
He could do a whole movie series on Steve Lilly.
Yeah. You better go. Barry's going to start sweating. We're at 2:49 here, so we don't need to upset Barry.
Roger beat Barry by 5 minutes last
5
time.
minutes last week. Yep, 5 minutes. Next week we are. I guess Harley Owens is still. We've got him lined. I've got him lined up to be here next Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I'll get back in touch with him. Make sure
And,
everything's okay with him.
At some point, Robbie, I'm gonna have Brian Barber on. I gotta figure out when he's.
Yeah, he'll be on our show tomorrow night.
Yeah, I remember I talked to him the other night. He said he was gonna be on.
And River, yeah, several times I get, which sometimes I write that off to being a cop for almost 30 years, but yeah, I get that. I've gotten that feeling plenty of times in the woods.
You better go, because River, bam, 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 bam with the questions here. Just kidding.
River's on tonight.
Yeah. Well, look what time of the day it is for him. So.
Well, that's right. He's getting close to noon.
River, just find me on Facebook, and you can send me a friend request, and because I know you're on Facebook, because I think I've seen your name pop up several times. Find me on Facebook, and
I keep telling him I keep telling Da we gotta write. We gotta write River in as Jay Matoska's Aboriginal cousin.
Yeah. Yeah, River's got Ghost too.
Yeah,
Don.
I'm
2:30
really
p.m.
late there.
2:30 p.m.
Don, I know it's the sci-fi series, but I was trying to figure out if he actually wrote that first before. And I know Ragnarok series was published first, but I couldn't remember if he wrote Lost Legion first. Is what I was trying to figure out. I know it's the sci-fi series because it kind of ties in, or not ties in, but it's the same as the Man's Marauders.
Was it one of the first ones he did? Wasn't it Cold Hunger? I think he co-wrote.
That's one. I think that's one of the Lost Legions. It's
Yeah,
Perdition's Flame and
yeah.
what's the other
I
one?
gotta go back because I never finished that, and I need to. It's kind of hard for me to keep track of stuff. He's wrote too many books.
Yeah. Now, he's got 30 plus in print, so and probably twice that on the. You ought to see the storyboard. We sat in his yard for 2.5 hours around the fire pit, basically storyboarding out. We did the last 2 to 2.5 chapters of Heart of Iron, and then kind of storyboarded.
Which I think more people need to read that book. I started it. I haven't.
It's a great book, but from there, kind of figuring out which team was going where to do what with who against who, and we sat there like I said for about 2.5 hours. Ooh, yeah, this what this over here, these over here. So there's a lot of stuff coming, a lot of stuff.
Good deal.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It's gonna be nice.
I might read a little more of Dark Frontiers Cry of the Wendigo tonight.
Yeah, well, right now he's working on the next Dark Frontiers book, which is supposed to just be that Rocky thing.
Yeah,
Was just supposed
I
to
read
be.
it. He sent it out last night, like midnight. I read it this morning when I got up.
Yeah, that was just supposed to be a short story, but that's going to be the next Dark Frontiers book.
Dark Frontiers is a good. I like that. I like that one.
Check them out. Give us a plug. Give yourself a plug about your show and everything.
Well, you can hear me every Wednesday and Saturday on DAX Machina, and every Sunday on Campfire Stories. And we usually go about 2.5 hours on both of those shows. You can. I haven't really done a whole lot with the what's really out there in a while, but we got over 50 episodes. You can find it on YouTube or Spreaker, iHeart.
Look at that.
Yeah, it's called What's Really Out There. Like I said, we got excuse me, we got close to 52, I think, episodes. We used to joke and call it DAX Machina a lot because it was only like 30 minutes to an hour, but I think we got some pretty decent shows. Yes, they're all fiction. It's they're a couple of different series, but they're all tied together in one large universe. Because you'll see characters from one set of books show up in another set of books, and vice versa, and they're all tied together and tied in one big story, and it's coming to a head. I mean, there's still a lot of books left, but something big's coming.
Yeah, there's some stuff I gotta go read that I think I forgot to read.
And the thing, and I know Greg will back this up, and I think you will too, Jeff. A lot of the reason that a lot of people like DA's books and his writing is because even though it's fiction and things like that, he does so much research to make most all his stuff so believable. That's why you can suspend your disbelief on some of the stuff. All the firearms or actual firearms are used.
He doesn't make any of that up.
Yeah, the guy when he's writing, if anybody's in a firefight, he's got everybody's name that's in a firefight, and anytime he writes that somebody has fired a shot, he makes a tick mark on a actual sheet of paper beside that person's name, and he knows what weapon system that person's using, so he knows when that person should be making a magazine change or a clip change, so he can actually write it into the book. And that's how much attention he pays to detail.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good.
And Erica, DA Ex Machina, and What's Really Out There. You can find both of them on YouTube. You can find my stuff on Spreaker and iHeartRadio as well. The What's Really Out There is pre-recorded, and it's just audio. But we're live every Wednesday, Saturday night for DA Ex Machina. We're live on Sunday nights for Campfire Stories, where me and DA and Doc, if he's able, and sometimes Steve will read DA's books. It's all Central Time. It's 8 o'clock Eastern, or excuse me, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. And yeah, Wyatt's right. DA's books. Wyatt's been with us in the field, and funny you should. I'm actually in the middle of writing a short story right now. DA's kind of helped me out on. I had an idea, and DA kind of helped me polish it up, but I don't know if it'll ever be published or if it's just something I'm doing just so I can get it out of my system.
I wish I had a writing ability.
You'd be surprised what you're capable of.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's too much stuff in this head. I'd have to have somebody to.
Look, dude, if DA can keep up with this, with how, I mean, think about it: 30 plus books, 5 different series, and they're all connected, and he keeps up with that continuity.
If he got that right in front of the right person, that thing would take off like a.
Yep. Well, movies come from books, Greg. There's always a chance. There's always a chance that may happen.
Well,
that would be cool. That would be cool.
That's why we just keep plugging and yeah, you're right, Don. Call it the Googles. The Googles, not you gotta put the in front of it. It's the Googles.
All right, guys. It's after 11 here, so it's after 11 for Robbie too. So.
Yeah, I'm on the same time.
I used to have an Eastern.
I forget that we've got him on the East Coast. We're used to
I know. I'm used to Central Time, people.
Well, say I'm used to going to this time.
Yeah,
we actually started, but this is the time that I'm used to going to, so it's nothing for me. So
I got you. Well, it was great, Robbie. It's great to meet you and finally get to talk to you and hear your stuff. And that probably didn't even touch the tip of the iceberg, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we kind of bounced all over the place, but there again, I'm used to that too, because
those areas there that you spoke of tonight is some very interesting stuff going on there. Just to be closed up with no apparent reasons, which we know what the reason is, but
yeah,
we've got a place like that around here.
To answer Robert's thing, he loves Tom Clancy books before the Ghost Riders took over. Funny you should say that, because DA is the Tom Clancy of cryptids, a phrase coined by Doc and I. We literally call him the Tom Clancy of cryptids. So check his books out. If you like Tom Clancy, you'll like DA.
That's it. Check it out. Buy his books.
Yep. DARoberts.net.
There you go.
He's on what, Amazon and Kindle?
Yes. Get on Amazon and search DA Roberts, and you can find all his books there. Go check them out. Also, if you want to check out any of my laser engraving stuff like that, you can find me on Instagram at Lone Wolf Customs, Lone.Wolf Customs. Okay. I guess somebody else had Lone Wolf, so they wouldn't let. So I do all kinds of laser engravings. Most of the people that are in the chat from our show know that, but I'm sure there's probably some of y'all. But we're actually DA and I have come up with a
project too.
Yeah, DA and I have come up with another thing that we're doing. We're going to I'm getting my blacksmith shop in order. We're going to start having some blades based on characters from DA's books. So those of you that like DA's books, we're going to be hand forging some stuff from
looking forward to that tomahawk.
Yep. The like for Declan Kane, he carries a set of Arkansas toothpicks for Bowie knives. We're going to have a Bowie knife called the Widowmaker because that's Declan's nickname, is the Widowmaker. And just stuff like that. But I'm gonna shut up because Jerry's gonna have a coronary.
Oh no! I don't never. I'm used to it. I'm used to it. It's all good.
I go till I fall asleep. That's how.
If somebody said I must have done good because I kept you awake throughout the whole show.
You don't want to know how many empty Diet Coke cans are sitting next to me right now. So
pumping the caffeine in. It's all good. Yeah, I appreciate it. When you to talk away, that's fine with me. No problem. All right. Well, hopefully next Tuesday like I say, it's supposed to have Harley Owens in here, so hopefully I'll check with him and that's still a go. If not, I'm sure Jeff and I believe Mr. Blaylock will be back with us next week too. So
yeah,
I'm sure
we'll get something rolling.
Absolutely.
Holidays and everybody else,
yeah, it's all good. All right.
And deer season's in, so
yeah. That there was a point in my life. Yeah, it's good deer hunt. I don't do that anymore, unfortunately. So
I never get tired of it.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, again, thank you, Robby. Appreciate it.
I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
I'm definitely going to sneak over there and start listening in on Sunday night too. On there.
Yeah, like I said, that's cool. That's starting at the beginning. So anybody that wants to hear the very start of the universe, that's the one we're going to be, or that's what we're going to be in for the foreseeable future right now. Anyway, because there's 5 of those books.
Yeah.
Very good.
Hang backstage for a second because I want to get your opinion on something we get over here.
Yeah, hang tight. Rest of you next Tuesday. Appreciate you all being in here. Like, subscribe, share. Yep. It's free. We appreciate it. So we'll see you next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, as always. Right, Jeff?
Yep.
See ya.